got 10 toes in the dirt. Push through the hurt just to show them my worth. I'm the best. Yeah, I'm the best. I never stress. I know what's next. I'm who they test, like we playing chess. But I'm unimpressed, so now let me flex. Yeah, I'ma work through the struggle and hurt, cause I know my worth, and I gotta be first. Yeah, I gotta be first. They don't know what's gotten into me, how'd I turn pain into energy. Through all the struggle and hurt, remember my worth, and that's why I gotta be first.
Look at my shine with the glow. This is my time with it though. This is my time to be way at the top. Me and my guys gon' pay out the block. I don't look like boss. Time's right, and I know they see us walking in the limelight. Promise you gon' wanna watch like a sci-fi. My guys are high risers, high tide. My crown if you come to my side. I pledge allegiance for lifetime. My squad connected like Wi-Fi. We grind and you see the highlights. This my life. It ain't a game now. Me and you, we ain't the same now. Lions coming out to play now. Opposition out the way now. Out of the way. You wasn't invited. Say you come to play. I dare you to try it. You don't wanna try me. Then step up to my team. Yeah, out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Game now, me and you, we ain't the same now. Lions coming out to play now. Opposition out the way now. Out of the way, you wasn't invited. Say you come to play. I dare you to try it. You don't wanna try me. Then step up to my team. Yeah, out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way.
Scenario, win, 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 yeah, we on a roll. Yeah, 2, 4, 6, we like 10 and 0. I should probably tell them something that they didn't know. Back then we was down with nowhere to go. Shit, might have been down, but we didn't fold. Now we running it like some intervals. Ooh, what now? Tell me who you see when you look straight up. Like, wait, who us now? What you gon' do when we pull up on you? Like, ooh, touchdown. You already know what it is when I come through you. Ooh, shut down. Shut down. Say, ooh, what now? Tell me who you see when you look straight up. Like, wait, who us now? What you gon' do when we pull up on you? Like, ooh, touchdown. You already know what it is when we come through you. Ooh, shut down. Ooh, shut down. Ooh, give me that crown. I need that now, right now. Ooh, don't make a sound. It's my time. You hear the crowd. We need that rain. Me and my team. Deja vu, this here a dream. We done all seen 100 times over back when we was just teens. Now we going dumb, told them we the one. They would count us out, now we counting up the funds. Now without a doubt, now we throwing other ones. Like they was always rapping, yeah, believe them if you want. Now they show love, came with a dub. It is what it is, it isn't what it was. They all love to hate when it don't work out. Tell you that they always been down when it does. Look. Say, ooh, what now? Tell me who you see when you look straight up. Like, wait, who us now? What you gon' do when we pull up on you? Like, ooh, touchdown. You already know what it is when we come through you. Ooh, shut down. Ooh,
they don't want it with me. You got a problem with me? Love, you don't want it with me. Man, you won't ever stop me. Who y'all really got a problem with? Who y'all really trying to solve them with? Who don't really like the sound of this? Who come with me getting down to this? You better step back, get your neck cracked, get laid down where you best step. Better check that with a fresh map, get lost now with no extract. Like look, that's all me. Got my number, don't call me. We eating up, that's all beef. You freezing up, that's y'all's team. Cause we really lose no more. All about heating up, leaving that cold. You can see beating up, killing that show. I ain't about giving that, giving up, no. Nah, cause they don't want it with me. Love, you got a problem with me. Love, cause y'all don't want it with me. If you start a fire with me, then you never gonna stop me. Ayy, sound the alarm. We about to go on. You getting it wrong. Time to go off. Can't hold us back. Truth hurts, you always that. My truth lurks, say y'all collapse. Now scoop first, where your homies at? Come my team with me right now. My team's on me right now. But what you mean y'all out? It's time to weed y'all out. Okay, we coming back with a vengeance. Time to go start your engines. What is this thing y'all mention? Time for y'all stop pretending, Nah, y'all can't do that. Where your crew at? Y'all can't do that. Nah, where your crew at? Nah.
Won't stop going till a player on top know it. Rooftop, penthouse suite. If you really want it, gotta own it. Fight through it, we was at the lowest. Blood, sweat, tears, the components. Riding all year, now's the moment. We are not friends, we are opponents. Yeah, I'm coming for mine. Yeah, I'm making a play, the game on the line. Yeah, I've been on the grind. Yeah, I jump in the spot, I made it my time. Yeah, look in the sky. Yeah, the stars align, no shade to shine. Can't stop it already. Emotional work and devotion. We put in this time. Look, you won't stop.
Welcome to the Snapdragon Pro Series, everybody. Good evening, or morning, or afternoon, wherever you might be. We're here with the open finals for Asphalt 9 Legends. I'm Jorisar, you can call me John, and I'm here with Lethal, aka Harry, to bring you the semifinals and finals across iOS and Android this evening. Harry, how's it going?
Looking forward to it, mate. Looking forward to it. Good to be casting with yourself once again
Yeah,
here,
man.
John. And it's going to be a great turnout nonetheless. Some great competition, some stiff competition actually, and some great talent across the board. Can't wait to see it.
It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And for those of you who are watching for the first time or maybe aren't so familiar, what is the Snapdragon Pro Series? Largest mobile esports competition across loads and loads of different games. Basically, it's $2 million in prize pool across a large number of games for anybody to come in and try and win a share of. So really advancing mobile esports. And today, we're going to be talking about Asphalt 9 Legends very, very specifically. We have semifinals and finals across both iOS and Android. So we're going to have some best of 3 semifinals, followed by, I believe, a best of 3 third place match, and then we'll have a best of 5 finals for each platform. So there's going to be quite a lot of action today, Harry, and it's very competitive on both platforms.
It certainly is indeed. The fact that it's a best of 3 and it's single elimination, there is no room or margin for error here. They need to play absolutely their best in terms of their game plan and what they want to do. And this isn't time trials or qualifiers anymore. They've only got one chance here to really make it into that grand final.
And look, right, we're not just here for fun, although we're going to have some fantastic tracks and matches for you. These guys are playing for keeps as well. $2,500 for iOS, $2,500 for Android. Thank you very much. We're obviously aiming for the top prize in each case. But the difference between first and fourth is quite hefty. 1,200 versus 200. Even in the third place match here, we're going to be seeing the drivers going all out.
Certainly will do indeed. A nice big chunk of change here. Not bad for a day's work here, John. $1,200 going to be the top dog here, depending on who's going to be able to win it all. And like I said, one match win could step up from that $200 position to at least a guaranteed $700 here. Very excited to see exactly who's going to win it. And it's like I said, in terms of the competition here, definitely the most stacked we've seen it for a very, very long time.
It certainly is. Let's take a look now, a glance back, if you will, at the qualifiers. This is how some of these players got here. So we're going to focus our attention on iOS first. We had 4 rounds of qualifying, and RPM Alex and RPM Cool managed to make it through. We then have Future Flash and Stanix. They're going to be our 4 iOS players today. A pretty stacked bracket there, I have to admit. Harry, this is going to be good.
Certainly is indeed. Alex, you know what? In terms of the iOS side, in terms of the platform, it would be wrong not to see Alex over here placing second numerous times. They're always the bridesmaid, never the bride in terms of the competition. Made it to multiple finals, but just looking for that one key victory here. Future Flash, of course, winning back at Milan Games Week and offline saying, see what it's like in an online setting. Again, had a bit of a hiatus. He's back here in 2022 to make his running. Again, Stanix, another player who's known quite well in the scene with multiple top 4 placements. And Cool, we haven't really seen too much of him in terms of the tournament setting here, but definitely looking to make a name for himself.
Can you believe that Milan Games Week is, I think, is the last time we saw each other?
Yeah, 3 years ago.
What?
Damn long time, mate. Damn,
that's actually ridiculous. Although the competition was great then as well. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether Alex can pull this one off and come one better than he has before and really take home this grand prize. Now we move on to the Android side of the leaderboard. Let's take a look. We've got David, Jägermeister, and RPM's Toto and Onio making it through here.
And it's nice to see David back as well. I've not seen him since the Asphalt series in 2020 where he placed 4th, so he's back here to try and make a name for himself once more. Jägermeister actually won the last season, so we can see if he can make it back to back. Onyo, again, a very similar situation to Alex where he had a great running in 2021, but the problem is he placed 2nd twice here. So looking for that victory here. Toto, again, another player trying to make a name for himself. It's going to be a tough running for him, but I'm sure he'd definitely make an impact here on the Android side.
It is certainly pushing everybody on their toes as well. Maybe Onio would be a little bit of a marginal favorite here on the Android side, but we'll come on to that in the second half of the show. For now, we're going to be focused 100% on iOS. We're going to get that competition underway first. This is what the bracket looks like. In terms of matchups here, Harry, talk to me. Is this good?
Mate, it certainly is. It's like I said before as well in the intros, the fact that this is in terms of the competition, the highest it's probably ever been here on the iOS side. I'm sure everyone in the competitor scene recognises these names, of course, and seeing Alex versus Stanix first, it's going to be a nice little ingredient here to start off in this best of 3.
Right, okay. So we've got Alex versus Stanix, Future Flash versus Cool, and even though the competition is as close as possible, maybe in a little bit I'm going to ask you to give me some predictions here, but I just want to see 2 really, really close races for all of our competitors before we get into our best of 5 finals. I think that's fair to say on both sides of the equation.
I completely agree as well. I think a lot of our players here, especially the viewers themselves, are going to assume they'll witness an Alex versus Flash kind of grand final. We've seen it once before, all that time ago. We'd love to see it again. But then again, I'd love to see Cool make a name for himself. And if he defeats Future Flash, he's going to be riding that momentum wave, the morale going into the grand final. But again, 2 very tough players to come up against.
Well, let's talk about Alex for a second. Obviously, Alex has placed really, really strongly in lots of competitions in the past, and wants to be able to really get that W and stamp his authority here. But it's never been a clear victory, has it? It's always been just close, but not quite close enough.
Certainly right indeed, and I think it's a key point there. A long overdue victory here. He should have won multiple times by now, but he's lost some best of 5s by the smallest of margins going into the track 5 or track 4, and it is also one of the most consistent players. And the reason why we say that is just due to the fact his placements over the last 3 years, multiple seconds and in the top 4. Definitely a name you'd always think of when you think of the iOS platform here, but this is his time to shine here. Is this going to be his moment to grab that victory?
It could well be. I'm very excited to see if he's going to make it through first to the finals. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but obviously he's got that pedigree behind him as one of the most consistent racers on the game. let's now take a look at the bracket for Android. You've seen who the players are, but who's going to be matched up against who? We're starting with David versus Onio, and then Toto versus Jägermeister. This one is going to be interesting, but I think it's also fair to say, Harry, that we might have clear favorites on both sides.
Agree, yeah. Onio and Jägermeister are probably the ones who are favourites to meet each other in the grand final, just due to what we know from experience from David. But Toto, though, again, a name not familiar with, because I've seen him time trials in the past in terms of qualification, but I would like to see him really make an impact. If it defeats Jägermeister and stops him from getting those back-to-back victories from compared to the previous season, then that's going to be huge for him here. But Onio, again, you know, he's had a fabulous 2021, came second in both seasons and looking for that first place finish. And speaking of the devil here, this is where we're going to continue on. Will his first place come today? That's going to be the big question. He did place third, I believe, in the spring season of 2021. He came second previously as well, but the problem is that's for Jägermeister coming third and first. Onio's had second both times, and it's again been the narrowest of margins here. So a very similar situation as to what Alex is in on the iOS side.
I had to really concentrate on what you were saying there. I was worried I couldn't hear you over Onio's beard, but I just about managed to catch every word. Speaking of some of the favorites on both sides of the bracket, before we started today, we managed to get a couple of thoughts from Alex on what he thought about his matchups today. Take a look.
About my competitors on iOS, they are three.
Can't hear.
One is Stanex, a great Russian player, very talented. This is going to be the third time we face. We are tied so far, and now we are going to face
can't really comment on it afterwards,
semifinals of the Snapdragon event. I really believe that this semifinal will be amazing also to watch for supporters and for passionates of Asphalt. For what matter is test the other semifinals that sees against Cool and Future Flash. Well, Cool is an RPM player, really young player, but very determined, very consistent player, and another teammate of mine. I believe he really exploded in the last period. He has become an extraordinary player, and therefore he has great chances. Even though he faces Future Flash,
we're going straight into the bracket again
for
iOS
player, one of the best players in the game, a dear friend of mine, and I'm looking forward to see the competition between these two guys. I expect to see very close racing line, very close competition, super clean, and amazing times as well.
So there you have it. Predictions of some very, very exciting semi-final matchups across the board. I can't help but think maybe Alex is fancying himself a little bit. He's being super humble and professional there. But honestly, I hope he's spot on with his predictions. Harry, what do you reckon?
I completely agree with what he says in terms of every race being super close. It's one of the situations where normally when you see a bracket, you can probably call on which player can make it to the final. But the problem is this time round, you can't really attempt. You can maybe say 55-45 in one of the players' favour, but this is how close we have to make it. It's going to be up to that degree where if Alex does show that consistency, which we spoke about earlier on in the intro, then there's no reason why we'll see him in that grand final. But a lot of people would love to see another rematch between Alex and Flash, of course.
I mean, I cannot wait, but I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll have to find out if the bracket does indeed turn out that way. Don't forget, regardless of who wins on track, it's not just the drivers here who can win. You can as well. Join in the conversation and come have a chat. All right, using the hashtag Snapdragon Pro Series, and get a chance to be featured on stream as well. Get going on social media. We'll be talking about some of your comments later on, I am sure. And while we're on the topic of Snapdragon, a huge thank you to Snapdragon Elite Gaming. Not only do they sponsor this event, but they allow players of all skill levels. And if you need a demonstration of all skill levels, you've got me and Harry here. I mean, it can't get more different skill levels than this to compete for over $2 million in prize funds over these games. It's a fantastic opportunity for mobile gamers across the globe. And it is so exciting to be part of it this evening in a bracket that's going to be pretty stacked and unpredictable. I'm so glad we can't accurately predict this. So this is the iOS Open Finals. We start off with Alex versus Stanix. We then move into Future Flash versus RPM Cool. And Harry, we've mentioned it before already, but it's worth repeating again. This is going to be intensely close.
It certainly is indeed. As Stanix, his last victory was back in the fall of 2020, so quite a while, at least 18 months since, and he actually made it through qualifier number 4. We didn't actually see much of him in the previous qualifiers, but you can see from the times just less than a tenth of a second. But of course, we won't be seeing any of the Caribbean peer pressure on today, and it's going to be, you know, it's just a small indicator really of what to expect. But time trials, qualifiers, whatever you want to call it, completely different kettle of fish here compared to that 1v1 format here. Are we going to see any dirty tricks from either player? Are we going to see someone take plenty of risks? Is someone going to play it very safe? But there's some players outside the top 8 who would prefer playing it a lot safer than what they would normally recommend. But Alex is a kind of player where he'll treat it like it's a time trial here, John. He won't care at all in the slightest. He'll just play his A game. He won't really care too much about exactly who's behind him and by how much. He'll just play how he'd normally play as it was a qualifier. Of course, I'm sure he's got some strategies, especially from the very get-go at the beginning.
Well, look, I mean, I realize this might not be indicative of the result in our first track, for example, but the fact of the matter is, Stanix was slightly quicker in the qualifier as well. So for those of us who are going, Alex is a shoo-in for the final, absolutely. I can't quite share that enthusiasm as much as we'd like to see that grand final. Alex has got a lot of work to do to defeat Stanix here.
It certainly does. Don't get me wrong, both Alex and Flash were first or at least in the top 3 in every single qualifier, and that's a
very
huge
consistent
feat in itself. But the problem is, though, it's like I said before, this ain't a qualifier. Attempts at one track, and that track's not even involved anyway. None of the qualifying tracks were. So this is where it's going to be a key indicator of what Alex can bring to the table here. What's he going to do at the very beginning? How's he going to progress halfway through the track? Is he going to play it safe? Is he going to continue it as though it's a time trial? What is his plan of action going to be towards the end? All these little things are going to make a big impact here, and I'm sure Stanix is going to be more than ready for it also.
Well, let's go ahead and bring you guys through what the tracks are going to be today as well. We're going to be starting off here in Auckland, and then we'll move on to Scotland for our second track. And finally, if needed, of course, if it's 1-1 after that and we can't split them, we're going to be moving on to Nevada as our tiebreaker. Harry, what do you make of this?
I think for starting Grid and Dambuster, they're very safe picks, very open, not really too risky in terms of how you want to try and progress. For Dambuster, we may see a lot of break nitro tricks due to the amount of straight lines you have to go across. But Ancient Ruins here, John, this is the one I'm very particular about, especially at the very beginning, who managed to at least barrel roll at the very start. But not only that, the very narrow bridges. I've seen a lot of crashes on my timing, especially landing on top of each other or just causing a bit of a ruckus here at the very get-go. This is what I mean by start strategies. Ancient Ruins in particular is going to be one to watch out for here, where some dirty tricks here could definitely come apart.
Well, you know, you can never guarantee the absence of dirty tricks. And, you know, sometimes once in a while, you might even want to encourage it a little bit for the viewership, for the sake of the competition. I mean, if it's within the rule book, the drivers are allowed to do it, right? So we could well see something like that based on what you've seen now. And you've got the tracks as well. Let's have ourselves a little bit of a prediction here. We've got Alex versus Stanix coming up first. How do you think it's going to go down?
I think it could go all the way here from what we've seen so far in past plays and how what they've achieved so far in the past. I would probably say Alex 2-0 or 2-1. The reason why I say 2-1 is the Ancient Ruins, it's a bit of a, it's a bit of a doozy for me. That's the best way to kind of explain it. It's all about the very beginning on who gets that first barrel roll first, especially at the very beginning on that first bend. And then if whoever gets past that bridge, depending on the circumstances, then it's quite smooth sailing along the way when you wall ride halfway through and then go from there. But I think whoever gets first place at the beginning and gets a good beginning or a good start and then be able to travel forward, they should be okay. Should be smooth sailing from there. But again, it's like I said, that second track, a doozy. I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually quite glad it's in this first match.
This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm hoping, not necessarily predicting, although I guess I'll stick my neck out on the line. Why not? I'm wondering if it's going to be a Stanix 2-1. He's got nothing to lose. A lot of people are backing Alex to get into the final. That might give Stanix extra fuel to go forward. We'll have to wait and see.
That's right, yeah. I think for Stanix, in terms of Alex's reputation, he hasn't got as much pressure. Yeah, sure, he's got a bit to lose because he had a few placements in the past, but this time around, he knows how much of a juggernaut Alex is across the board in this platform. This is the issue he's going to have. He knows about it, of course. Everyone knows about Alex on this platform as a whole. But for Stanix, it's like I said, not as much pressure. He may take a few risks depending on the circumstances. Going back to that second track, it depends how he does on the first track. If he feels like he's ahead
he started,
on some
actually. Bear with me, Harry. I think we're getting into track number 1 now. So let's go ahead and take a look at how they're doing in Auckland. Take it away.
Lovely stuff. Do you know what? Let's chat at more gameplay. That's what I'm all for here already. And already Stanix with a slight early lead here. And already a crash coming out here on Stanix's side. And Alex is going to have a nice clear lead. Trying to get boost up already. But Alex again just playing it safe in the mode. Using that single nitro just to get across around these corners. Of course, the single nitro is probably the best way to get around some of these bends. Especially using that shockwave when necessary around these straight curves.
And Stanix now has a little bit of a mountain to climb, unfortunately, just on the first lap. That quick wreck there, allowing Alex to take this relatively easy. You can't take your foot completely off the gas, pardon the pun there. You still have to make sure you get around okay, and there are mistakes you can make even when you're taking things a bit lightly. That can lead to a wreck, and if that happens, of course, Stanix is right back in this, which is why he's trying so hard to catch up. He knows that he can continue to apply pressure here, but there's absolutely no doubt that Alex has the upper hand.
Absolutely. He's going to be at least 2 seconds behind due to that crash early on. The only way he can come back from this is take some risky barrel rolls on those straight and narrow jumps and turn at least 360 to catch up a little bit nitro, but it's all about that nitro management coming out from Alex here at the moment. Good use of the nitro so far, using that shockwave to go straight on the head, and good barrel roll as well to try and get round this corner. Just use that single nitro just to be a little bit carefree here. Use that shockwave now to get round this next bend. As long as he plays it safe here, John, he shouldn't have an issue.
Yeah, Alex doesn't look like he's taking too many risks at the moment, that's for sure. Stanix just trying to push him every inch of the way, but he knows he's at least semi-reliant on a mistake right now. You're trying to maybe chip away that lead so that if it's 3 seconds, it comes down to 2, it comes down to 1.5, and really just pressure him into a potential mistake. We haven't really seen that from Alex. He's been keeping very cool under pressure.
Yes, indeed, but Alex again just treating it like it's a time trial at the moment, John, just doing everything he can to not only stop that lead or closing the gap from Stanix, the fact that he can try and increase it just to be a little bit more comfortable along the way. Good use of the perfect nitro as well. He's going to use that barrel roll just to increase it furthermore, and manages to go through straight away as Alex looking very clean here. Shame about the crash, a bit unfortunate here from Stanix. Some style points from him at the end just to add the crash a little bit more. And look at that gap though, 4.2 seconds here, John.
4.2 seconds. That is sizable. There's no other way to put it. That is a little bit problematic now for Stanix. He's been put on the back foot, but we go to Scotland now, and it's all about the starting strategy here. So maybe Stanix can get one back, but it's going to have to be very aggressive off the start now. I feel like it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
That's right. I kind of feel like now that Stanix may have to play a couple of dirty tricks if he can at the very beginning, because not only did he crash and fell a couple of seconds behind, Alex actually managed to increase his lead, and that's saying something here, John.
Look, when you treat it as a time trial and in front you just happen to be faster than the car behind, that's exactly what he had to do. I feel like Alex made a statement with that. Okay, he was about, I think, 2.5 seconds ahead at the time of the crash, 4 seconds ahead by the end of the race. He's saying, look, I'm out to beat you, but I'm out to beat you comfortably. I don't want this to be close. I want this to be extremely clear. I want to send a message to whoever I meet in the finals.
Exactly that. Actually, you took the word right out of my, right out of my mouth here, John. I was going to say the same thing. He's looking to make a statement, not to his opponent, but of course to players on the other side of the bracket. I'm sure Flash and Cool will be watching this as well to see exactly what shenanigans both his players are up to here. But again, another comfortable victory here from Alex. And it makes you question, really, if it was Alex who crashed, would he been able to close the gap on Stanix?
I mean, I'm not saying I want to see an early Alex crash followed by him moving back up the order later on, but wouldn't that be something actually in this second race? I'd love that.
Certainly would do indeed, because it depends on that position and where they're going to be on this second track on Ancient Ruins. 2:31.6 is going to be the time here for Alex. He's going to be pretty damn pleased with himself so far. Didn't look shaky at all in the slightest. Just had fantastic nitro management across the board on both laps, which is why he was able to not able to stabilize the lead, but of course increase it as well.
Yeah, that was really, really nice stuff from Alex. I'm looking for an opportunity to say something might be cracking under pressure, or actually there was a moment of weakness here and that we might be able to exploit that on track number 2. The honest answer is I've got none of that on Alex. He was just ice cold the whole way through, took the advantage and extended it. Like we were saying, he was playing it safe. Playing it safe was faster.
Yeah, that's the worrying thing, isn't it? If he plays it safe and still able to increase it, the problem is when you do crash at some stage and you know you've got a massive gap to try and close, the only thing you can do is obviously be a little bit more careful of what you want to do, but especially with those straight jumps, try and risk a barrel roll off one of the edges. That's the only way to increase that nitro, but of course Alex doesn't need to do that. He can just 360 off it just to, okay, he won't get as much nitro, but at least he can keep his lead firm and secure.
And when you're in that position, I mean, you're the car behind. There's not really anything you can do beyond try to close the gap to exert any pressure on the guys in front as well. So as soon as you allow them a big enough lead for someone like Alex to go into time trial mode, you don't want to say it's over before it's over. But at that point, if the guy in front has that sort of mentality, you're not even a factor in what they're thinking about anymore.
Well, this is the problem as well, especially with tracks 1 and 3. For starting grid and later on, if it comes to it, Dam Buster, it's very hard to close the gap. There's not really as many risks you can take compared to some of the other tracks you can actually do. And I think Stanix kind of knew that as well going into it. And the only thing he could help or rely on is the fact that Alex falters in some way or makes some major hiccup. But of course, this is Alex talking about. This is why I said he's one of the most highly consistent players here on this platform. And it's very rare to see him make that kind of error.
Well, we are about to get started into track number 2. Alex currently leading 1-0. It's a best of 3, so if Alex wins this one as well, that is it. That's the first semi-final done and dusted. Stanix has to win this in order to go to a map number 3. Let's head into game now because we don't want to miss the start of this one.
No, we didn't. And luckily, we just managed to catch the crash at the very beginning because then we'd be questioning ourselves, how on earth did he get such a lead? But I think we would have made a correct assumption here, John, as we will go to the second track. But like I said, it's the very beginning of this track to decide exactly what could potentially be the outcome, depending on the circumstances here. As well, going to start off from Alex's POV, both on that right side. Looks like Stanix does have the early lead here, going for that barrel roll, and it looks like Alex is just going to let him, and it's perfectly understandable. I did say that whoever's going to be behind, they probably will let him go a little bit further, so at least they don't crash into each other later on. Good barrel rolls again here, as again, Alex just slowly behind, but creeping up ever so slightly, using that perfect nitro to get across here, and good use of that nitro as well. It's going to barrel roll across to the next bridge, still pushing on forward, but Stanix is just going to wall ride a tad just to try and get, he actually crashed trying to wall ride onto it. A big hiccup there from Stanix once again. He was planning to wall ride onto the side to get to the barrel roll straight afterwards, and that's cost him massively again here, John.
That was advantage Stanix from the beginning, and he knew he had the advantage. He wanted to press every millisecond he could, and unfortunately that has cost him dearly here once again for the second track in a row. It is advantage Alex after an early wreck from Stanix, and he got off the line better as well. That genuinely, for me, is quite unexpected.
It certainly was indeed. The problem was for Stanix, he was trying to wall ride a little bit too early and then managed to actually get his car on the side, and that's what massively cost him dearly here. So Alex still at least a couple of seconds ahead so far. Still got great use that nitro, using the shockwave to get underneath this bridge, but once more just playing it safe, and now he's going to go across to this next section of the bridge here. Nice little drift here, using that double nitro, just going to brake a little bit early just so he can drift some more. Wall ride now to make sure he has that shockwave going up to this next ramp.
And Alex at the moment is looking a little bit like he's on rails. Oh no, and that's Stanix going for something similar once again, falling even further behind. And I fear this might be a 2-0.
I think it's going to be 100%. Continues. He made the same mistake twice, and he's probably thinking to himself, like, what on earth am I doing? Like, at the point, like, he's probably thinking to himself, this never, ever happens, even on my worst days. And sadly for him, it's not going to be the case here. So it does seem like Alex will win by a massive margin here, 11.1 seconds nearly. And that's, again, making a statement here. Just very unfortunate for Stanix, trying to wall ride a little bit early.
That really is. I was thinking before the start of this track, we were going, well, actually, if Stanix manages to get the jump off the start line, we were going to see something very, very interesting indeed.
And he got it.
And yes, I just didn't think that interesting thing would be a Stanix implosion.
No, not at all. I'm not really too sure what exactly happened. I know, obviously, the reason behind it just due to the fact that he tried to wall ride a little bit too early, but the fact that it happened twice, it's like I said, I'm sure a lot of people, especially Stanix, thinking to himself, if it's never happens, he's just trying to wall ride early just so he gets a little bit more nitro. Maybe he's playing it a little bit too greedy here, as we're going to witness it right now anyway, as Alex just playing it safe. He knew that at some stage Stanix may make a bit of a mistake. He was trying to close the gap. Actually closed the gap pretty damn early here on that tight bridge, but of course, going on to this next bridge as well, this is where it all happened and all fell short here for Stanix. Sadly, missing that part of the railings, not able to wall ride, and then you can see Stanix was trying to do it a little bit earlier again to see if it can try and catch up. Wasn't able to. Alex, 157.2, not too shabby at all. We'll be seeing him in the grand final.
Well, that is a statement, if anything. Stanix managing to get the jump on Alex at the start of our second track. Didn't even matter in the end, as Alex, again, pressuring him into a mistake, perhaps, and 2 mistakes in a row guarantees Alex the 2-0. And there is something to be said for these high-pressure situations. Like, there are a lot of people who are good at Asphalt 9 Legends. There are very few people who are great. Alex is one of them. Stanix is as well, to be fair, but it's how you perform under pressure in these situations that could win you a lot of prize money as well. I was looking for some sort of weakness from Alex. I was looking for the mistake. It wasn't really there.
Not really at all now, because I think we were more paying attention to how Stanix was going to perform and to see if it could close the gap. But it's like I said before, we were expecting the crashes at least within the first 30 seconds over across the narrow bridge, if they're both trying to go onto it at the same time, if one of them lands on top of each other. But you can see as well, Alex was actually far enough behind after that first ramp to not be able to do that. He's just playing it safe, knowing that his time will come to be able to close the gap. It was only about half a second behind. But for Stanix, so when he realised that he messed up on that wall ride, Alex probably thinking he's just been gifted his first place position.
I really wanted to see the Alex Stanix fight after he had caught up as well. I feel like we were robbed a little bit of that. The best we can hope for now is something similar in the grand final involving Alex. Hopefully we will see that too. But this is how the bracket currently looks. RPM Alex is in the grand finals, and our next matchup is going to be Future Flash versus a teammate Cool. This is going to be an interesting one as well.
Certainly will be indeed. Cool, looking to make a name for himself. We didn't really see him in any of the qualifiers apart from the third qualifier where we saw him win that outright on roller coaster ride on San Fran. And Future Flash, again, an incredible player. The consistency just as high as Alex, maybe even a little bit better here. We'll see how things go here. But for Cool though, you know, we'll have a pretty damn high ping here, as we know that all the way from Kuwait. And we're going to see exactly how Flash is going to come up against it though. So what I'm interested in is to see how Cool performs. I've not seen much of him in a tournament setting, and this is where he can make a name for himself and really do a dent into the armor of Flash.
Can we talk about Future Flash's hair products and what he uses? Because I feel like
ask him.
I feel like this has to be a talking point. Look at how perfect that is. A ramp that you could barrel roll off of. Straight up, right?
Yeah,
we
you
have to talk
literally
about
could.
that.
You literally could indeed. Do you know what?
That is strong.
Whenever we meet him again, I think I'm going to have to ask him what product he uses as well. Because if you look at mine, mine's nowhere near as straight and perfect as his. Obviously, he cares a lot more about it than I do, clearly. But obviously, you know, good-looking guy, nothing really to shape up about that. But I'm definitely going to ask him how on earth he manages to do it. But talking point now, going back to Cool anyway, just to see, it's like I said, needs to make a name for himself. Haven't seen him much in the tournament saying, can he beat Future Flash? If he does, he'll be running that momentum wave all across the board, and he'll be a great factor against Alex. Alex will be a little bit worried considering Flash isn't really the, you know, he's one of the most hardest opponents to come up against as well. And Flash, he just like Alex as well, he will treat it like it's a time trial. He is very well experienced in that 1v1 format and knows how to close the gap and knows what to do at the very beginning depending on what track to play on. Hopefully it won't be Ancient Ruins again for their sake. But it won't be, so hopefully it won't be too bad either. And you've got to remember, back in that first race, tracks 1 and 3, even though we didn't see Dan Buster, they're also very safe picks indeed, which is why probably Alex favours both tracks 1 and 3. I can understand why at the very beginning of Ancient Ruins he decided to fall back a little bit. Just let him ride that wave. And going into these tracks, though, very excited to see how we'll see. But we will see Scotland again here, John. It will be Path of the Window, so a little bit different here going into it. We'll be seeing Desert Life again, very open, but not too risky. But with straights and hairpins, though, some doozy narrow parts and bends in the middle of this track.
Yeah, this is going to be mixing things up just a little bit going into the second semi-final. It's worth noting as well that you did see the qualifier time there for Cool be slightly faster than Future Flash. So if both races here were to treat this as a time trial, I think Cool has what it takes to be on the same page and occasionally pip Future Flash to the post. So absolutely not one where Future Flash can afford to rest on his laurels.
Yeah, completely agree. I feel like Cool will probably have a bit of discussion with Alex in terms of what his game plan should be going up against Future Flash. Future Flash has a wide variety of strategies across the board. It's very unique. He's very unorthodox. You don't really know what you're going to get from him, and that's really tough to call as well. That's why you're going to have to be very picky of how you're going to approach the style of this. At least with Path of the Wind, especially going back to Scotland, it's not like Ancient Ruins where the first bend could be, you know, the end-all end things. I kind of say it's the good players, or where good players come to die, or it's like pick your poison really at that retrospect. But at least with Path of the Wind, a little bit more different. The start won't be as, you know, so much paranoia or anxiety going in terms of the start strategy, but still going to be very close nonetheless.
All right, well, straights and hairpins, it's back to Auckland to start us off. This is going to be our second semi-final here on iOS. Let's hop into the game and take a look.
All right, let's see if Cool can really make an impact and make a name for himself in this competition, in this second semi-final. Can be starting off with Future Flash with a nice little early lead. Both players looking to save their nitro, but I can see they're Cool using that double nitro just to get a little bit of a lead here, and also good use of the barrel from both these players so far. Cool, did they get a little bit of extra nitro there? Cool looking to drift on by, trying to get up to that shockwave, which he does. Has braked a little bit to go around that drift to continue that shockwave right around the corner.
Future Flash, though, holding just behind him. Building up his nitro again and trying his best to look for an opportunity of weakness. Remember, he doesn't have to get past him right this second. He's waiting for the chance. He needs to know where his opponent's going to be a bit weaker. And these guys are separated by something like half a tenth a second, right? This is very, very close indeed.
Yeah, it literally is indeed. The only way Flash came back a little bit, he just attacked and just managed to keep his balance. Both players will run it once again to trying to get as much nitro as possible so they can at least shockwave or maybe double nitro round at this corner, which they have done. Still looking very close indeed, but still Cool, not really giving up any kind of time at all. Flash doing everything he can. He has crept up a little bit, but that tiny margin of error earlier did give Cool that early lead here. Using that shockwave, going around this corner, doesn't go for the next bump, going into lap number 2.
And you know what? RPM Cool keeping his cool so far. Future Flash trying to keep up actually crashes out. So almost handing this to RPM Cool on a plate. This is not the first track we were expecting.
And the way Cool's playing at the moment, Flash is just going to hope for dear life that Cool crashes at some stage, but doesn't need to now. Cool just needs to play it safe, make sure he secures this first track victory here. Flash should get around his corner to use that double nitro. Not really too sure how he managed to crash in the end. Maybe he tried to do a little bit more of his nitro management, take a few risks here and there, but just wasn't to be. As Cool still going on ahead around this next bend, using that shockwave on the perfect straight line, getting the most out of that barrel roll on the right hand side. Still continuing with that single nitro here, getting across with the double. Now looking very solid, and these lines are absolutely perfect here. Cool now wall riding towards the end.
And Future Flash trying to keep up, and you can see mistakes creeping in as well as he's desperate to close the gap. But it doesn't look like he's going to be able to here. RPM Cool cruising to victory here now through this stadium section, and that is an absolutely delightful performance from him here in track number 1.
Certainly is indeed. It just shows Cool is definitely here to play, but it does mean the pressure is going to be on Flash. Sadly for him, I kind of felt like maybe he took a risk which we didn't witness earlier on, which caused him that crash. He's not really someone to falter so heavily, and look at that, an 8-second gap nearly. Wow. Cool already putting on a statement here, but Flash has still got 2 more tracks to try and make that reverse sweep happen.
Well, look, right? I think if we went back to before the start of today's matches and we said, which of these matchups is more likely to result in a 2-0? I think we would have probably said a Future Flash 2-0 is a little bit more possible than an Alex 2-0. And look at what's happening right now. This is delightful stuff for RPM Cool. I'm really, really proud of him here.
You know what, John? I love a good upset. This could be happening here depending on the circumstances. And Cool looking very fresh and also looking very good so far. Very impressed with what we witnessed. There was only one minor error which we saw Flash make at one stage on one of the ratings. I think it was because you're trying to ride the rail just a little bit to get a bit more extra nitro. But even though it cost him, Flash was still able to close the gap. So if he gets through this second track and be able to take it on Path for the Wind coming up next and manage to tie things up, with the next one coming afterwards on Nevada for Desert Life, I think that's going to be one track where normally for most players coming out of qualifiers or time trials or normally perform best in time trials, normally get the bigger edge, so to speak. But Cool looking very calm and collective already. 2-2-9, not too shabby at all. We'll have to see exactly how Flash can try and bring this back.
What's going through Cool's mind right now? When you perform an upset and you manage to get into this position, you obviously don't want to be complacent. That's how the reverse sweeps happen, right? So he's focused now purely on forget about Nevada. I want to be able to get this done and dusted and 2-0 Future Flash and send a huge message to Alex going into the grand finals. How's he preparing himself? What's going on right now in his head?
It probably feels like now he needs to end it here because Flash is very, very good at making his reverse sweeps and making his comebacks. He knows that if he takes this one, he can meet Alex in the grand final and then ride that momentum wave as we spoke before. But against Flash, it's very, very tough, as we mentioned it always. And in terms of time trials and qualification, Flash, you've got to remember, he made it top 3 every single time. So the consistency is going to be there. And you knew that Flash in that first track, he took those risks due to the fact that the double nitro, which Cool used early on to go up that next jump, or that next barrel roll rather, managed to help him massively, at least increase it by another couple attempts of the second. Flash knew that, and the only way to close the gap was to take a few risks, and sadly didn't work in his favor.
So will Cool be able to put Flash in another position where Flash is going to have to take more risks? But it's a little bit of a different track this time. It's not all dependent on the start, like you said before. What are Cool's opportunities to put Flash in a little bit of a tricky situation?
The way he played at the start was perfect. The fact that he used that double nitro a little bit earlier before that first jump, using that barrel roll to get a little bit more extra nitro. We're talking about a little bit, but we're talking about tiny margins of error here between the two. And he knew that he would have to do everything he can. He can't play safe against any of these players, especially in this bracket. And he knows that more than anyone coming into this. But the only thing you can do is continue taking those risks. If you've got at least a half a second lead, just continue on as you go forth. And the reason why I say don't take as many risks, because you've got to remember about those tight bridges. And the other 2 bridges straight afterwards, don't do a Stanix and mess up that wall ride as well later on, because it's one of the last things you want to do. But Flash here is going to be looking to try and bring this back, 100%.
So we've got RPM Cool and Future Flash. This is going to be the Path of the Wind. We've already been to Scotland, of course, in the first semi-final, but we had Ancient Ruins to start off with. Path of the Wind this time around, little bit of different terrain.
Yeah, it certainly is indeed. It's like we mentioned before, the start strategy won't be as demanding, I think, so to speak, in terms of what we're going to do and who wants to try and peak up first. But yeah, this is where you can afford to take a lot more risks. So if someone is half a second behind, or dare say at least a second, there is room to close the gap. There is room to play very unsafe and be able to close the gap. There's many ways you can do it, so they won't feel like they're outside the realm of impossibility, shall we say.
We delved into the mind of RPM Cool a little bit. Let's have a chat about Future Flash. You mentioned he's very, very good at making these reverse sweeps, but look, the goal is not to be in a position where you need to make the reverse sweep in the first place, right? What is it about the way he plays? What is it about his mentality that means he might, you know, have a bit of a setback like this on a regular basis? Is that something he needs to worry about?
It's very hard to say because doesn't seem to be the kind of player who gets affected too much by pressure. He seems very cool, calm and collected. We've seen it in an offline environment. Go back to online, it should be actually even better in terms of how he wants to perform. And this is where those high ping situations can happen, especially where both players are from in terms of countries here. So he may have to be a little bit cautious on what he wants to do. He's not really the kind of player who normally plays dirty, but if it does come to that point, especially if he's like directly behind him, he may do it. It's like I said, he's very unorthodox in terms of what style he brings to the table here. Sure. And he can't really bring that style as much going into Desert Life. But on this track in particular, he definitely can.
I don't know whether we're hoping to see some or whether we're not hoping to see some.
I definitely am. I'm not going to lie.
I'll tell you what, if we have a situation where Future Flash is directly behind RPM Cool, I do want to see some shenanigans happen for sure. At the end of the day, it's different to time trial. It's a duel, and you can directly influence the outcome of your opponent. So if the game allows you to do it, then why the heck not? Future Flash, I'm sure if he gets an opportunity to do something similar, he'll absolutely go for it. At the same time, though, Cool's gonna know he's coming for him. Cool's gonna know that that's on the table. And for that reason, if he gets a clean start, maybe he's the one that's gonna be treating this like a time trial.
Yeah, this is where I want to see a complete role reversal and see how Cool does under pressure from directly behind. And I saw Future Flash at the beginning of that track, even though he did lose out very early on due to the double nitro pursued early by Cool. Flash was closing the gap, but I think he got a little bit greedy and was looking for it a little bit more, a little bit quicker. Remember, there is 2 laps, so it does mean he's got a little bit of time to try and at least capitalize on him, to pile on the pressure, to be directed behind him, to let Cool know that you're going to have to make, you know, either one minor error or minuscule error in order to at least try and defeat me by any means necessary. But I kind of feel like both tracks 1 and 3, once you do have the lead, it is quite comfortable, it's quite smooth sailing. It's like I said, there was a lot of drifting which revolves around both Auckland tracks, both in that first semi-final going into this one, and also going into Desert Life if it does go to a 3rd track. And believe you me, if it goes to a 3rd one, it would not shock me in the slightest.
Oh, I can't wait for that. For those who are joining us just now or checking us out halfway through this match, let's go ahead and show you the bracket for iOS one more time. This is where we're at the moment. RPM Cool has a 1-0 lead over Future Flash, and Alex took the 2-0 lead over Stanix.
Yeah, we expected Alex to go into the grand final, not the way of intended, but I would definitely say we wanted Cool to make for a name for himself if he could, and he certainly has done already, piling on a lot of pressure onto Flash. But Flash, like I said, is not really too phased by it. He'll definitely just crack on as though it's any other day. And Cool, though, is going to be pretty pleased. He's probably a little bit shook up to begin with, knowing that his opponent is definitely one of the best here at Asphalt 9 on the iOS platform. And he knows that he's probably thought to himself, I've got a 1-0 lead here. Why not at least make it a clean sweep and at least show Alex that there's no reason why I can't defeat you as well.
So this is the iOS bracket. Let's give you guys a taster of what's to come as well. That was iOS. Let's take a look at Android. So in the second half of today's broadcast, we've got David going up against Onio, and then we have Toto going up against Jägermeister. And, well, very similar to this, we might be able to make some predictions there, but those could end up all going out the window with a delightful track victory from an undercard. And that's exactly what we're seeing in this situation, with RPM Cool being 1-0 up over Future Flash.
We could see Toto do the same thing as Cool. We don't really know. This is what I mean. We don't see a huge amount of him in a tournament situation. Yeah, sure, we haven't seen David in a couple of years when he plays 4th back in the Asphalt series. But then again, against Onio, it's going to be a tough main course indeed. But I think in terms of prediction, a lot of players, or a lot of the viewers especially, will assume it's going to be an Onio versus Jägermeister kind of grand final. But it's going to be very exciting to see that later on.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look as we have managed to go into track number 2. Path of the Wind here, and take it away.
Oh, Flash didn't really get as much as of a barrel roll and airtime as he would like, so he's going to be a little bit behind in terms of nitro here, both on 316 to try and get much of that nitro as physically possible, using that single nitro here, because of course with that single nitro you get a little bit better handling around these corners. Flash still directly behind him, so we're not going to see a role reversal. We're going to see Flash being directly behind him. He's actually catching up massively, using that shockwave to try and go across. Didn't really get a huge amount from that barrel roll, didn't really go too much to the right side as he would like, but still trying to creep up, trying to close the gap, and hasn't really made too much error here, but he's going to have to take some risks here if he wants to overtake Cool, as Cool's actually extended it by a few more tenths of a second.
RPM Cool out in front, and looking like he's soaking up the pressure nicely so far. Looking for that mistake is Flash. He's not able to close up this gap, perhaps in a way that some of us would have expected earlier on. So now we wait and see later. There's Cool there, shock waving his way through the ramps. He's still about the same distance behind Flash. Let's see if Flash can catch up.
Yeah, Flash is still struggling to catch up here. The gap is relatively equal from what we saw 30 seconds ago, but Flash now using that single nitro, using the perfect later on towards the end. Got to get full effect from this barrel roll, using that double nitro to try and creep up a little bit further. Gonna save his nitro to perfect and then try and at least get up a little bit more with the double nitro here. Gonna use the single to try and get around his corner and wall ride just a tad here. Gonna see if he can barrel just to add it a little bit more, but again, Cool, very calm and collected, doing a great job. Great nitro management also, and Cool looking very good so far. Just use that perfect nitro to extend his lead just a tad. Double nitro across the board, and Cool is going to be the one who takes it here. And Flash actually loses out 2-0. And just to mind you here, John, no crashes involved and won by well over a second and a half.
Yes, indeed. A 1.5-second victory with no wrecks on the board. RPM Cool with the 2-0 victory going into the finals here for iOS. That's a big deal. And even though their teammate, I mean, Alex, take note.
Certainly would from what we just saw so far. And yeah, it was a little bit of a shame for Flash. We saw that he didn't really get the full barrel rolls. He could have got a little bit more nitro from a lot of those jumps, which is why the gap was slowly increasing over time. Cool kind of felt that as well. I'm sure he's listening out for the audio cues to see if it was directly behind him, and he kind of felt like as well that he was well away in terms of being in that first place position, but still kept that consistency up. And you'll see a few of the times from Flash as well, it was a good barrel roll here, but you can see he didn't really get the full effect here. Didn't really get to that full right-hand side. Did get a little bit of barrel roll there for the perfect nitro, but cool, it was very clean here from the entirety of that as well. And you can see just perfect all round here from Cool, and he's going to definitely do his best to see what he can do to put a dent into the armor of Alex.
That was very, very relaxed under pressure there from RPM Cool. We were waiting for the mistakes from the lead as Future Flash kept trying to pile the pressure on. None was forthcoming, and honestly, Cool just extended the lead and kept going, winning by over 1.5 seconds. This is... How worried does Future Flash have to be for even 3rd place at this point? I feel like that's maybe more Cool Flash doing a bad one. Is that fair?
I think that's fair, yeah. I think the first track maybe Flash faltered, but Cool just played it very, very well indeed. He knew exactly what he was up against. He had great nitro management across both these tracks, just treated it as any other day and didn't really notice much pressure from him at all. It's just very collective. He definitely did everything he could to take as much advantage from nitro from every single one of those ramps here. And I feel like Stanix is going to feel like he's got a few issues here coming up against Flash, because Flash is probably the last person you want to come up against in the 3rd place playoff.
Yeah, I think so. This is going to be really rough for Stanix, but we now know, of course, that Future Flash is beatable, so it's entirely possible that that's the outcome. We'll have to wait and see. So that is the 2nd semi-final done for iOS. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that means for our bracket and what we're going to be seeing next on stream. We've got RPM Cool advancing to the finals, the best of 5. He's going to be taking on teammate Alex. And then the 3rd place match, which you're going to see on stream next, is Stanix versus Future Flash. Now, Stanix got into advantageous positions against Alex, but mistakes cost him. They really cost him dearly. And Future Flash making a mistake himself on the first track. So it's who's going to be holding their cool under pressure, I think.
Yeah, I kind of feel like there's been a lot more pressure on Stanix. It wasn't really impressive what we saw there. The mistakes we saw from Stanix, he's probably going to be kicking himself thinking, this never happens ever. Like, why is it happening now in the tournament setting? This shouldn't be. It's unbelievable. But he's got a second chance now. Yeah, sure, he hasn't got a second chance in terms of the having a double elimination bracket to try and make it to the grand final. But he's got another opportunity here to at least get himself the best out of a bad situation here. At least try and get 3rd place if he can. And like you mentioned already, Flash, there has been, you know, minor errors here and there where it's going to make Stanix think, okay, I do have like a small window of opportunity to try and take 3rd place. But against Flash, it's going to be very tough indeed. But I think for Alex and Cool, though, it's going to be a team kill, but it's a grand final, so it don't matter.
Exactly right. So this is going to be the 3rd place decider. Let's take a look at the tracks that we're going to be racing on here. And we're starting off this time in the Caribbean. So we've got the Paradise Resort. We're then going to Osaka for the Kita Run, and then back to the US Midwest for Canyon Launch. Harry, what do you make of this?
Well, going to the Caribbean, I think this is the only track available in the Caribbean actually throughout the entirety of this tournament. So we'll be going to Paradise Resort. It's again another track where you've got plenty of room to try and close the gap with a few risks on the way. Kita Run, it can be very hit and miss depending on the circumstances. Again, with Canyon Launch, plenty of space, plenty of openings as well, especially for the player who feels like they are the better one in terms of time trials also.
I like the fact that we started off this segment going, we think we have a pretty solid read on who's going forward. And then we're ending this with, actually, I'm not sure whether Stanix or Future Flash is going to take 3rd place here. Both of them have shown, I feel like it's the player that makes the first mistake that's going to lose, honestly. And I think it could be either of them.
Getting an early lead on Asphalt, on any Asphalt title really, is huge. It's massive. It's not really due to a pressure situation or anything like that. It's just how the game mechanics works here overall. And all these players know that already, going into this next one between Future Flash and Stanix to see who's going to bang himself 1st place position. To be fair, getting top 4 is an achievement in itself, considering the players who competed in these qualifiers, and we're going to be starting off from Stanix's POV.
Future Flash there, just crowding Stanix off a little bit, but it all goes wrong. That first mistake has come, and it's gone the way of Stanix. Future Flash there goes off circuit, just trying to crowd Stanix out, and it doesn't go to plan.
It certainly doesn't indeed. Flash is probably thinking what more could go wrong at this point, and Stanix going to have a nice, healthy lead here. Just got to play it safe, but also not get too secure in terms of this first track victory here. One full swoop or one crash is going to cost him also, but the problem is no Future Flash here. Going to try and do everything he can. Shockwave now going around this next bend. Will be able to try and get everything he can from that drift to Shockwave towards this next portion of this tunnel. It's pretty straight here, so he's not going to have to worry too much in terms of next few of these bends here. Stanix continue on the warpath. Going to leave that next ramp just in case he does get a little bit too risky here. Doesn't want to really take any more risks now due to the fact that he's so far ahead. He should be having too much cause for concern here. Going into the second lap, using that double nitro, going to get around this next bend here. Using the perfect nitro, just going for the nitro in the middle instead of going for that jump on the right-hand side. Perfectly understandable.
Very, very relaxed stuff here from Stanix, not taking any unnecessary risks whatsoever. We mentioned earlier how this is actually a bit of a different approach, right? You get some drivers there ahead, but they're still treating it like a time trial, and they're taking every jump, they're squeezing every millisecond out of this. Stanix is approaching this differently. It's significantly safer, significantly fewer jumps, just nice and chilled out, making sure you use your nitro well and you conserve it well while maintaining a decent speed. And Future Flash, he's pulling out all the stops, but he's not quite catching up.
No, not a lot, sadly, for him. He needs to wait for a fatal error coming out from Stanix, but it's just not going to happen at all. Stanix knows that just got to keep it calm and collective, not really do too much here in order to, you know, mess things up going into this first race here. And it will be Stanix who wins this first track in the best of 3. But a start points there for Flash, just basically recollecting the flashback he had earlier on. And still though, 2 and a bit seconds in, not too shabby here from Flash, doing everything he could to close the gap, but it's just not going to happen. When it's this high tier level or the higher echelon between all these players, one crash and that's going to be all it basically. And you've got to remember, guys at home, this is a best of 3, so Stanix needs to win one more race, or one more track rather, in order to secure victory and secure the 3rd place.
This is getting very, very spicy indeed. We're next going to be moving to Osaka for the Kita run. Stanix must be feeling pretty confident right now. I mean, what can Flash do here? You kind of feel like that he's not really had that role reversal yet. Every single player he's played against so far, I say it as though he's played multiple, but between the likes of Colt and now against Stanix, they always get that early lead, and it's so important. Asphalt 9, just so important indeed. And you can see from there that I'm not too sure what happened in the crash. I'm not too sure if Stanix played a part, or if it's a little bit of a fatal error coming out from Flash. But this is what I mean from Flash. It's uncharacteristic. It's not something you would normally see from him. No, we've seen errors from both players, but not really any errors from Stanix that time around, and that earns him the victory. He goes 1-0 up with a time of 2:03.365. Of course, lap number 2 was a little bit slower than optimal, but that's because he knew he just needed to protect the lead and not make any mistakes, and he did that absolutely beautifully. So, one more track victory for Stanix, and he'll take 3rd place here. Perhaps not something we expected for Future Flash. It doesn't look like under pressure off the start line he's been holding it together that well at all today.
Yeah, I've been singing Flash's praises throughout the entirety of the tournament so far, and
he's one of the fastest in the world.
This is what I mean, yeah. In terms of qualifiers, he's come like first twice out of the 4 qualifiers. He came top 3 in every single qualifier known to man. But it's like I said, 1v1 environment, qualifier, completely different kettle of fish. But then again, I kind of feel like Flash is one of the players who does excel in that department. The only reason why he's lost so far is because he's crashed in almost every single track, and this is why he's probably face-palming, thinking, I just need just one clean race in order to really settle his mindset a little bit going into the 3rd one, which will be on Canyon Launch, where he definitely can excel and create an impact and try and close this out and be able to take 3rd place. So it's definitely not out of the realms of possibility as of yet. But Stanix, I do feel like for him, kind of feel like he's in the same position as Cool, where he needs to end this 2-0.
Stanix is going to try and close it out quickly. I think Future Flash has the experience and the pedigree to dig deep and bring this to a 3rd track. And if it goes to a 3rd track, Stanix, well, might be a little bit worried, but Future Flash has so much work to do. I'm really excited to watch this play out in Osaka.
Don't be surprised if this does go to a third track. Stanix is good, don't get me wrong. Maybe the tracks earlier on, maybe Ancient Ruins isn't his cup of tea, which is still very strange. But I think now, ever since back in that third race and the first race rather, and going back to this race now, it's a completely different player. He seems to be a lot more calm now. He seems to be at a point where maybe in a tournament saying normally it takes some players a little bit of time to ease into a tournament setting. It's completely different to scrims or playing casually going to trials. But now he's had that first race in tournament setting, now going into this one, he realizes that okay, I won't place first or second, but at least I can bring back something in order to add to his achievements on his CV.
And that's what he's going to be looking to do here. Third place is at stake, so a podium position, but only one of these drivers can get it. Stanix currently with a 1-0 lead over Future Flash, and we then have the grand finals up next. But let's go ahead and hop into game and take a look at which of these drivers is going to make it through to third. Are we going to, in fact, go to a third track? We find out in moments.
And it could be the first third track of the day. It's been clean sweep so far. We're going to be starting from Future Flash's POV. Let's see what you can do here. Gets a nice early lead. Good role reversal. This is exactly what we wanted to witness. And just using the straight path now to at least drift and then go straight into the shockwave. Both players neck and neck so far. Stanic's still directly behind him. He knows he's got a little bit of gap to try and turn around so far, but there wasn't really any jumps or any risks he can take right now as of yet. Just needs to play it clean, play it securely. A little bit late on the shockwave due to Flash's nitro management and drifting a little bit early on that last bend, going back and forth here. But Stanic sees closed up about a tenth of a second, and Flash knows that he needs to continue playing risky.
He certainly does. Stanix not allowing Flash any room for maneuver here at all. Flash is ahead, though, which means Stanix is still the player with the work to do. Flash at the moment holding the lead. Stanix needs to start taking some risks if he wants to think about challenging going into the start of lap 2.
Good wall ride there from Stanix earlier on. Managed to increase his shockwave a little bit more going over that last jump. Using the shockwave again. Going to be 360 off this next one. Just increasing nitro just a tad more. Double nitro in as he's going on up. Single nitro just to go to his next bend due to the handling. And still Flash with the lead. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Early leads here on Asphalt is so vital, so important here. Stanix now using the shockwave of his own. But Flash giving no room for error here at all. Getting that next nitro canister now to get around this next bend. We'll be using the shockwave as he gets around this final bend. Also using this straight line to try and get as much as he physically can. Drifting back and forth to try and get up to that shockwave. And now looking very solid indeed. Not really too much trouble for concern here. This next jump's going to be absolutely vital here. And Flash gets a huge amount of nitro. Good barrel roll also. And using that perfect nitro break in. And now going up this next jump to go straight for the shockwave straight afterwards.
You know what? This is regulation here from Flash, and he's asking the question to Stanix. Well, look, I'm just doing what I consider to be a close to perfect run. Can you keep up? And Stanix, to be fair, is keeping up, but not quite at the pace required to mount an overtaking opportunity, unfortunately.
No, it certainly isn't at all. Nice barrel roll on that last jump from Stanix, just to try and see if he can get a little bit nitro to close the gap, but it's just way too little too late. Nicely done here. 1.1 second was the gap between the two, which does mean that Flash was increasing it over time, and Stanix did play a great part in order to try and close it, but the problem is some little plays here and there from Flash. Just drift a little bit sooner on some of those curves or some of those bends in order to get a shockwave earlier, especially up some of those ramps. You saw Stanix on the last jump as well, just going for or favouring the barrel roll instead of going for the 360 jump to get that extra nitro, but it's just too little too late, not going to be enough. And we'll be going to our first third track here, John.
And this is what happens when the drivers don't make mistakes. We actually see some really good high-level racing here. Stanix trying his best to catch up, but Flash giving absolutely no quarter at all. That was really good stuff. And it does indeed mean we go to our first third track. It's going to be Desert Life in Nevada. Are you feeling this favors Flash now with the momentum?
I would say so as well. Not even just the momentum though, but just the track in itself. Flash is proven at this point where when there's no crashes or no silly shenanigans or mischief playing a part, he will be, well, he knows he's the better racer out of the two. He probably feels like those straight off the bat. And even with Stanix taking a couple of those risks, he still couldn't close the gap. And that's worrying on my part. That's worrying in terms of how Stanix is going to play. So the question is Stanix just going to try and play anything dirty at the beginning, or is he just going to see if he can just outpace him or outrace him, or is he going to try and get that early lead of Flash, which seems to be very difficult in itself, but that's the first time we've seen Flash with the early lead, and he just secured it with ease.
Yeah, he maintained it and continued to grow the gap. You would argue then that he's basically sending the message to Stanix to say, look, if you want to take the fight to me, that's fine, but you're going to have to start taking some risks. And we saw on track number 1 that when Stanix had the lead, he's very risk averse in his play style, which means he doesn't want to take additional risks if he doesn't have to. So I wonder if this means going into track number 3, Stanix is going to be more uncomfortable than Future Flash, and that could play a key factor in deciding who goes through here.
Yeah, the beginning, again, very important, especially on Canyon Launch, or even on Kita Run. So the only way you could close the gap is to drift a little bit earlier, or at least barrel roll some of those straight jumps instead. But again, you can easily cause some of those crashes. I'm sure a lot of them probably witnessed it during the time trials to try and do everything they can to get the best time possible to even qualify going into this. But as long as Flash plays his game, he probably feels like he's a better racer no matter what. As long as he gets that early lead, he'll be fine. The problem is if he comes from behind, he's going to be the one who has to try and play a little bit dirty from behind and trying to either land on top of him after one of the barrel rolls, if he gets the barrel roll a little bit earlier or a little bit more to the side, depending on the circumstances, how he wants to save his nitro. There's a lot of talking points here going into this, and we're going to see a lot of the break nitro trick as well to try and at least close it a few attempts here and there to make sure to make Stanix uncomfortable, if Stanix does have the lead, of course.
It's all about who's going to crack under pressure. Significantly fewer mistakes there on track number 2, but it looks like when the drivers make fewer mistakes, it's Future Flash that comes out a little bit on top as far as who has the speed. Let's go ahead now and hop into our third and final track. Who's going to make it to third place?
That's going to be the question indeed. Of course, fourth will get $200, third 400, so double the money, double the chunk of change here. Whoever's going to win this third track. Also, we'll be starting off from Flash's POV. Early lead already. Got that nice position start on the right-hand side. And this is where you just got to continue on as just if it's another day. Takes a risk with the barrel roll. Good stuff from Stanix as well. And Flash now still ahead ever so slightly here. But the crash comes in already from Stanix.
Oh,
so unfortunate here. Flash now knows that this is his time to shine and take that third place. Even though it's not in the grand final, it's like I said, making the best out of a bad situation. Stanix here has got a lot of work to cover.
Like we were saying earlier, who blinks first? Who makes the mistake first in an otherwise pretty neck-and-neck situation? And it does look like Future Flash has now found a little bit of his groove, to be fair. We saw his semi-final. I think it's fair to say, for someone of his standard, peppered with mistakes. And none of that. There's absolutely none of that here. On that previous track and here as well, Future Flash at the moment is looking at close to his best.
And that's the thing, when it's single limb and it's best of 3, it's very difficult not to make some of these mistakes. But that's when the pressure comes on as well. As Flash now using the shockwave to go up this next jump, times it perfectly with the nitro. Still got the shockwave in hand to use once he's drifted around this next corner. Breaks a little bit just to make sure he can shockwave off this next jump. Nicely done again as he gets around this next corner. Drifting around to get the shockwave once again as he goes for that next canister. Stanix now looking to do the same, but use it to double nitro, which does mean he's probably falling short a little bit further here. And he's going to have to rely on a fatal error from Flash, but I can't see Flash doing that, even though Flash is just treated it though it's just another day. He's still playing it quite unsafe just in case he does make a bit of an accident himself, but this is looking very solid from Flash.
Stanix trying hard to close the gap, but Future Flash just too far ahead and crucially not making those mistakes. He's soaking up the pressure like nobody's business. And a fatal error here could hand Stanix the victory, but Flash is just... It looks smooth, you know what I mean? When it starts looking this smooth and the players make it look this easy, you can almost feel when they're in the zone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense as well. And also, you've got to talk about the pole position he had. He had the right-hand side, so he could go straight a little bit longer and accumulate that mileage. And oh, a crash happens from Flash as well. That's not expected here. Stanix, I don't even realise it. Oh, no, never mind. He actually crashed at the very end.
No, that was at the finish line, right?
That was, yeah. Excuse me.
Yeah.
That did... At one point, because I didn't actually see the finish line occur, I was like, oh my god, he's actually done it.
We didn't see the banner above the start-finish straight. Yeah. We thought, hang on a second. No. He was safe there. He was safe. And look at that. 5 seconds. That's big.
That's huge. It just means he extended his lead. You saw on some areas where Stanix was actually double nitroing up some of those jumps, but due to the nitro management coming out from Flash, just breaking a little bit earlier to try and get as much shockwave as possible up some of the other jumps, you can see it was just accumulating over time, and it kind of made me feel like if Flash was even the one who was also behind, he may just overtake over time. This is one of the issues he had, but Flash played a much cleaner race in comparison in all areas.
And Stanix essentially playing catch-up here, but Flash keeping things clean and not really taking too much of a safe route. I think going down the time trial, there we go, that was the bit at the end, going down the time trial route of let's just make sure I have this lap as quick and as clean as possible, extending that lead to 5 seconds for a 2:19.798 finish. So Future Flash here does rescue third place.
Certainly does indeed. 2:19.8, not too shabby at all. I don't think he's going to be happy with third place, but do you know what? At least he gets a top 3 finish to add to his EV or tournament placements he's had so far. But also, it's nice to see Future Flash back again. We didn't see him last year. We've seen him back this year as well. So I'm sure he's had to kind of at least adjust back into that tournament setting once again. And I'm certain we're going to see a lot more of him during the next season as well.
Yeah, I think we absolutely will. He's proven that he is here to stay. And we have some very interesting competitive performances, but we also saw that he's human. Getting, you know, first place in 2 of the qualifiers. He looked like he was in such a strong position to absolutely come out here and make it straight through to the grand finals. That didn't happen. We saw a little bit of a chink in the armor, and that makes things interesting, doesn't it?
It certainly does indeed, but Flash as well just proved to Stanix where he was the better racer. He had cleaner lines. His nitro management was just really, really important, but really key to extend that lead in the third track. But now here, John, we've got our grand finals. It's going to be Alex versus Cool. Well, Cool, we said it earlier in the introduction today, they can definitely make an impact, but also make a name for himself. And Alex, will he get that first place finish he so desperately desires? He's had a lot to the tally, a lot of podium finish, so to speak, is what you normally say, John. But surely this is his time now to try and defeat his teammate. But it's not going to be an easy job here.
It's time to decide first and second place. Now, for the grand finals, we're going to be going to a best of 5. So going 2-0 up does not mean you take home the $1,200 for first place. And these are the tracks we're going to be racing at. So we're going to start off in Cairo. We then move to the Himalayas. San Francisco will be track number 3. Guaranteed that those 3 tracks are going to get raced on. Then we have Rome and Shanghai to finish things off if we need a track number 4 and a track number 5. What do you make of this list?
I think Cave Heat and Eternal City is going to be the 2 I'll be keeping my eyes on. That's even if it goes to a 4th track over Eternal City. We've seen a lot of that in competitive play, especially in tournaments here. We've seen a lot of City by the Bay and Eternal City played out to no end. The reason why I talk about Cave Heat is that there's a lot of risky factors you can take in order to try and close the gap. I'm sure both these players are going to be doing everything there. But I think going on to Cairo as well, especially on the side of 1,000 Minarats, is the fact that this is going to be a nice, easy track in order for these 2 to kind of ease themselves into this grand final.
Do we want an easy track? Do we want people to ease themselves in, though? Come on, don't we want to make life just a little bit difficult? Yeah, maybe we want to see some shenanigans here, but you're right. If it's going to be fairly straightforward, and also their teammates as well, right? Which means maybe a little bit... You say less likely dirty racing. I say they know how they play normally, and therefore dirty racing might be required. Let's find out as we hop into our first race. This is the grand finals on iOS.
And we're going to be kicking things off from Alex's POV because he got the right-hand side. He had to drift a little bit early in order to get that double nitro over the barrel jumps. Of course, Cool's got that slight advantage here. Good shockwave from both these players. Cool to stop it a little bit early to continue the shockwave as he goes around this next bend. Just watching Alex's POV so far, just a little bit onto the side. His lines aren't absolutely perfect so far, as his 360 is looking very good. Just breaking a little bit early just to try and close the gap, using that perfect nitro, using the double to at least careful with his handling to get onto that next jump, using that barrel roll and just playing it a little bit calm and collective here. But he is closing the gap ever so slightly. Cool probably realizes that from the audio cues. Good barrel roll again, double nitro from Alex. And Cool needs to be careful, almost taken over him, and he does here, John.
Yeah, that was a bit of a mistake from Cool. And now they're both sharing a ramp at the same time, side by side now, going into the latter half of the first lap. Very exciting stuff. Using the shockwave. Cool a little bit sooner than Alex. And Alex now manages to obtain a slender lead.
Certainly does. The barrel roll's looking good for Alex, but the barrel roll looking much better for Cool, which means he's going to have that nitro advantage. Perfect nitroing over to this next part of the bridge. And Cool's actually catching up with him, but it's going to be lap number 2. He's still got a little bit more time to play. In terms of speed, he's actually catching up with him, but just hits that bridge, using the shockwave straight afterwards. Perfect time as well, using the shockwave to continue on. Neck and neck for both these players, but I kind of feel like the speed is edging Alex ever so slightly. Alex realizes this, using the perfect nitro, both of them with their nitro management looking perfect here. Single nitro down this very difficult bends round here. Going to try and at least perfect nitro over this next barrel roll. Going up to the next ramp, using double nitro just to try and hit the next ramp. Also, this is looking neck and neck here. It's going to be very tough to call.
Wall riding just a second there as Cool attempts to come back. And he's neck and neck, just about gets his nose out in front. A little bit of a better jump there for Alex, but can he make the position back in time? Cool striking on this final lap. It's felt like, honestly, Cool slightly faster, but also makes more mistakes. What can Alex do in the dying seconds?
Oh, there's a talking point to why Cool actually managed to extend his lead this match. We'll talk about it straight afterwards as Alex is still trying to close the gap. Use that single nitro to get around this next bend and see if he can at least try and close this gap. Cool now. Going to shockwave over to the finish line, looking very solid indeed. Well played from Cool. And you can see there as well, just under a second difference between the two. And this is the grand final here, John, we was looking for. This is the grand final we wanted. And I'll say in this first track, it's going to help him ease into it in terms of autonomous saying clearly not. But the talking point I want to mention is the fact that you saw Cool towards the 2/3 mark, 3/4 mark of that second lap where actually Cool decided to extend his jump over a little bit more, actually drop down underneath the bridge to go for the jump underneath to use that barrel roll because he'll get a little bit more airtime, more nitro also, and that was a huge risk from Cool, but because of how much time he had left to even make an impact in that race, he had to do it and he did it perfectly.
Look, we were talking about earlier. In fact, we've talked at some point in all of our matches today about how when you're behind, you need to take those big risks to catch up. We just haven't seen it pay off until now. And Cool there with the lead, basically getting chipped away. And then Alex overtaking him as well. He knew he had to do something special to try and get the dub there on track number 1. And he managed to do it just in the nick of time. That was really, really awesome.
Dear me, I actually can't get over that as well. That was so risky from Cool, but I'm glad for him that the risk did pay off. I'm hoping we do see it in the replay because you got to remember there was this bit he clipped the bridge here, used the shockwave to barrel up to this next one. But I think it's just here where he decides to go under the bridge and try and at least get a little bit more extension on the actual on his actual nitro manager earlier on. It wasn't. It was actually a little bit later on that track, but it doesn't matter. The matter of the fact is Cool is going to be the one in the lead. 1-0 here in this best of 5. You're just joining us. 222.8, not too shabby, just under a second difference compared to Alex. And it just shows that Alex probably didn't feel like Cool was going to make that much of a risk, but at the same time, it was only like 20 or 30 seconds until he was going to hit the finish line. So Cool had to do something, and that was the only time, the only moment he could in order to overtake Alex.
Now, if that wasn't spicy enough, we've got Cave Heat coming up next. And 1000 Minarets, look, we said it was going to be pretty chill, pretty relaxed way to start the grand finals. That was anything but relaxed, and we're about to turn the spiciness up a couple notches.
So it will be indeed as we go into the Himalayas, and as you mentioned, we'll be on Cave Heat. This is one of the tracks I've wanted to especially keep an eye on. I don't think many of these players are going to ride the railings or anything like that. I think they're going to wait and see exactly how things are going to turn out right at the very beginning of this matchup. But again, looking forward to it. Let's see if at least Alex can try and equalize going into track 3 later.
That's going to be big indeed. Can you as well and really put Alex on the ropes? Getting to the grand final, Alex, if I'm honest, didn't really make any mistakes. And if I'm really putting my thinking hat on, he didn't make any big mistakes on track number 1 either, to be honest. Cool just took more risks. So at some point, we're going to have to see Alex come out of his comfort zone here.
Yeah, both Cool and Alex had very clean lines. I think they had a little bit of a bash on 2 of the ramps, actually, which meant that Cool had I think the first ramp, actually, it was more the case of Alex had a bit of a disadvantage. You got to remember at the very beginning as well, Alex started on the right-hand side, so he had to dip a little bit, lose a bit of speed, but at the same time gain a little bit of nitro and let Cool go up that first jump, because if he went up at the same time, he would have gone up on the right-hand side, wouldn't barrel rolled as much, and that's why the nitro wouldn't really play a massive favour for him, and Cool would have extended his lead by at least a quarter to half of a second. He knew that as well. It's very difficult to start from the right-hand side of that track, but there was another bump as well where Cool didn't really favour him anyway, but that one jump, that one decision he made towards the end was the difference maker here going into this next track, going up with a 1-0 lead.
Well, we are off to the Himalayas and Cave Heat for track number 2 in this best of 5 grand final. You are watching the Snapdragon Pro Series. Let's go ahead and hop into game and see if RPM Alex can bring it back.
Yeah, hopefully for him, for his sake, it won't be another flashback or history repeating itself, so to speak, with another second place finish. Cool will have their early lead here. Both of them going to try and use the barrel roll off that straight jump instead, which is perfectly understandable considering how strong both these players are. They want to try and get every little edge on each other as much as physically possible. Alex has to close the gap a little bit, tried to go on the inside a little bit more. It does not work in his favour. Alex now just using that perfect nitro and breaks a little bit to use the shockwave up this next bend. Almost manages to overtake him. Cool knows that though, but he's actually on the outside. Tries to ride a little bit to gain a little bit more nitro, which he does manage to. Does have the nitro advantage. Both players take a massive risk off that straight jump to use that barrel roll, but I think these two players know each other very well. They both know that they need to take massive risks on all of these jumps here. So that straight jump back there is probably one of the most riskiest ones here on Himalayas, especially on KP, and they need every little edge possible against each other.
RPM Cool extending his lead just a little bit, but not without a hairy moment, it has to be said. Alex did a great job of closing up and almost overtaking, and Cool now responding. So lap number 1 looks like it'll be a marginal advantage. And speaking of marginal, God, I had my heart in my throat there for a sec.
Yeah, I did as well. Sadly, Alex didn't get the barrel roll. He wasn't really far enough to the right in order to execute that. So Cool now, he's got a very comfortable lead here. I still feel like he may still take a risk up this next straight jump in order to do that barrel roll. I'd understand perfectly because Alex is very good at closing this gap, feeling like he could be the better racer. But let's see if Cool does take that risk. Will he actually do it? Yes, he does. Gets the barrel roll in, does it perfectly. Alex also nails it also to make sure to keep up with that nitro. But for Alex, though, he has absolutely no choice. He had to nail that. Cool didn't have to, but then again, he doesn't want Alex to close this gap. He knows how much of a great racer he is. Cool using that double nitro to go around this next bend. It's going to be Proof saying it's mailing for here. Still about a second behind going up this final stage.
And RPM Cool makes it 2-0. Alex now on the ropes. Perennial bridesmaid. And to be fair, actually, that consistency should not be sniffed at. I mean, Alex's results in tournaments have been fantastic. But it's Cool. It's his teammate that is now 2-0 up against him in the grand final. This is not what we predicted at the beginning of this at
No, and possibly Cool could win this entire tournament without dropping a track. The fact that if he defeats Alex here and with a 3-0 and also defeated Flash 2-0, that's a huge feat in itself. This is probably the hardest bracket you could ever ask for here, especially on this platform alone. And a couple of talking points here was the fact that, yeah, don't get me wrong, I kind of feel like Alex had some of the cleaner lines going through a lot of these bends and a lot of these angles, but it's that one jump which Alex kind of made a bit of a miss at there. Didn't get the barrel roll on the first jump on that straight line earlier on in the second lap. Which, don't get me wrong, even if he hit it, he still would have been about 3/4 to a second in terms of late, in terms of that. But I like how Cool still managed to take advantage of the barrel roll from both the first jump and this huge jump halfway through that track, just to make sure that Alex doesn't close it. Because he probably knows what kind of character Alex is in terms of feeling like he's a better racer in terms of trials overall. But Cordo looking very strong indeed. A solid straight track again. 2-0 lead there in this best of 5. And this next one is going to be tournament points. And for Alex here, it's going to have to be a reverse sweep from him in order to be champion. And it's sad to say it, this could be another second place.
Look, on the one hand, I would love to see a reverse sweep. On the other, though, how cool would it be for Cool, no pun intended, to beat Future Flash and then to beat Alex and be able to say, look, you have to notice me now. This is my time. I mean, you can't possibly win a championship in a more emphatic way. He hasn't done it yet, but he's got the opportunity to now. 3-0 in the grand final against Alex is a big deal.
Certainly is. These two players are arguably the best players there, and the fact that not only, you know, it's a mammoth achievement in itself defeating him, but doing it without dropping a track, that's just ridiculous in itself. And if he does and manage to win his grand final 3-0, Cool is definitely going to be a name we have to keep a very, very close eye on, especially in the Asphalt competitive scene in the future.
Well, let's go ahead and hop into this next track now as we get ready to find out if Cool's going to make it 3-0 or if Alex is going to start the comeback. This is San Francisco. Let's find out.
As Alex now's got a nice little drifter just to try and put him off just a tad here, but 360 comes out for Cool. Did have made a little error there, but got a little bit more nitro to keep up with Alex at the very beginning. So Alex trying to throw Cool off just a tad here, not really too expected. Shockwave comes out from Alex. He should be able to extend his lead massively because of the fact that Alex got a lot more nitro out in comparison. As both players now going to use the barrel roll to try and get up both of these jumps here. Nice and clean here. As a little bit of a shaky start from Cool, as I don't think he expected Alex to throw him off that massively in comparison. Good little jumps here. Use that double nitro to go up each of these jumps here and there. And looking to see a little bit more. Going up and doing this barrel roll. Going to use the double nitro once again. He's going to use the shockwave up over this next bridge. You can actually clip that bridge, which we've just gone past in order to get a little bit more, but it's just way too risky here. Cool, looking pretty solid, but Alex here, with the throw-off he had at the very beginning, looking pretty comfortable.
Yeah, Alex there resorting maybe to a little bit of gamesmanship with his teammate, that's for sure. And trying to throw him off a bit. And to be fair, that tactic has absolutely paid off so far. Cool is behind. It looks like he's dropped back just that little bit further. And he's going to have some thinking to do here for lap number 2.
Certainly does, as another 360 comes out for Cool. Use that double nitro up this next jump to get a little bit of speed in order to get more airtime. Shockwave going up next, going around this next bend. Is actually closing the gap, and Alex knows this as well. So there's no room for him to play it safe. Just a little bit risky there. Almost managed to fall off, but managed to stabilize in the end. Playing it on the side. 360 comes out for Alex. Cool now still directly behind him here, but he's actually missed that jump. This could be a time for Cool in order to try and overtake with that shockwave and see if he manages to here. He's got the double nitro going up each of these jumps and is actually ahead here. And Alex looking to try and close the gap even further, but it's going to be Cool now on this third track. Will he be able to get this victory here? Alex is trying to do everything he can here, John, in order to do it, but Cool manages to stabilize.
Wow.
Alex faltered at the end in that last track, and Cool is going to be the one who wins the tournament 3-0 in this best of 5.
Forcing Alex to crack under pressure. Not something we would have expected to say at the end of this broadcast after the way Alex started the semi-finals so strongly. That was something special from Cool. A 3-0 sweep in the grand finals as well. And $1,200 is going his way. What a way to do it.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Alex had the lead the entire time. I wouldn't say he had a dream start, don't get me wrong, but because of the amount of nitro he gathered compared to Cool due to the drift he did at the start, and I kind of feel like Cool was trying to stabilize himself, it was a little bit of a struggle here. But the fact that Alex failed probably the last jump going into the next ramp, and I think he realized that, and Alex just said to himself, do you know what, I'm just gonna have to do a straight line under the bridge, perfect nitro. If Cool succeeds, he succeeds. That's my loss. There's nothing more you can do from there. And you saw it was just not possible at all. There's no way for Alex to even close that gap entirely, but Cool did a great job closing it out anyway. Cool is going to be your winner here for the iOS side for Asphalt 9 on the Snapdragon Pro Series. 3-0 victory in the grand finals, not dropping a single track to both Future Flash and RPM Alex. But sadly for RPM Alex, it's going to be another second place for him. His history does repeat itself.
What a story, though, for Cool. I mean, not dropping a track to Future Flash and then not dropping a track to Alex en route to securing the first place here in the Open Finals. What a way to make an entrance. Really impressed with how Cool has been taking things. Whether he was in front or behind, you notice he's always been calm under pressure, and he's got the goods to back it up as well. Very impressed. Arguably just the driver who made the fewest mistakes today.
Yeah, it certainly was indeed. Cool was definitely the most consistent across the board on all these tracks, and you could see from his pedigree, skill, and even his skill set in 1v1s alone, it's definitely going to be a player to especially keep an eye on. Don't give up. Even if he lost his grand final and it was a reverse sweep, I would still keep an eye on Cool no matter what, in terms of situation, no matter what tournament it's going to be in. But very impressed with what he's delivered and what he's brought to the table. And again, in terms of when we have an interview him later on, I'm sure we've got plenty of questions to ask him to see exactly how he feels, maybe with his first victory here.
Let's go ahead and show you guys at home one more time exactly what went down here in the iOS half of the competition. So we started off with our semi-finals. We had RPM Alex take a 2-0 victory over Stanix, and then RPM Cool, perhaps against the expectations of some, getting a 2-0 victory against Future Flash in a very entertaining series. In the third place playoff, then it went all the way to our third track for the first time as Future Flash found some form and defeated Stanix 2-1. But in the grand grand finals. RPM Cool certainly kept his and managed to get a 3-0 sweep. That has to be the biggest talking point here. What a bracket. What a way this played out. This was really, really cool, Harry.
Certainly was, yeah. A little bit unfortunate for Alex, as sadly for him, it will be second place once again. It's nice to see a player who we haven't seen a huge amount of in the tournament scene to actually create this much of a dent into all these top players on the iOS side. And again, it's like I said before, Cool is going to be definitely a player we'll be keeping an eye on. But for Alex, he's, it's another grand final we can add to the tally, but another second place as well. Back losing to that South Korean player back at Gamescom 2019, losing to Flash again in 2019, a couple other second place finishes as well, and now losing to Cool. It's not even the same opponent he's been losing to every time, and hasn't really had a nemesis to really have trouble to defeating. It seems to be numerous different players who was able to bag the gold here.
Well, you know what? Even though he's losing to different opponents, the fact that he's been able to consistently get into the grand finals of such prestigious tournaments, no matter where he is, no matter what the tournament is actually really special. So while I have sympathy for Alex for not winning, also bear in mind, he's got a pretty decent chunk of prize money and he's consistently at the top of his game. Whereas other players, even the ones who have beaten him, they've been there, but then they've dropped off and they've had to come back and they've dropped off. Alex's consistency is mesmerizing.
It certainly is. It's just a real pleasure to watch. Just nothing short of spectacular indeed. And like I said before, Alex is not going to wait empty-handed. We'll have $700. And Cool will have a nice hefty $1,200. So let's be honest, John, not a bad day's work, is it?
No, not at all. That was the iOS portion of the competition, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching the Snapdragon Pro Series here. This is Asphalt 9. It's the open final. iOS has just concluded. Let's now go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, it's Android.
The Snapdragon Pro Series is brought to you by Snapdragon Elite Gaming, Monster Energy, and DHL.
Legends on Android, and I'm playing ESL Final today. The origin of my in-game name is kind of funny because many people assume that my name is after an alcohol brand, which is kind of true. But at the same time, it's kind of changed up because the word Meister is actually a word in Polish, which means like leader of the work group, basically, like on the constructions or something like that. And that kind of fits my personality because I kind of feel like I can be a leader or something like that. And hence why I kind of changed it. And I feel like it just looks better. I think I'm doing a pretty good job, if I'm being honest. I feel like amongst all the competitors, I might have the biggest chances, although I can't expect honestly anything, because I know who the opponents are, and I don't know, it's gonna be interesting to have a battle against them. I know personally both Future Flash and Onyo, and I'm happy for them to be able to qualify for the final stages. Because I know how good they are. I know that they're capable of making it happen, and I'm proud of them for them making it to the final stages. I think I'm okay actually. I don't think there's nothing to be like stressing about. After all, it's just a fun competition. So I feel like it's gonna be everything okay. It's definitely gonna be a tough deal with, since I know how Onyo plays, since I have history of me battling him in the previous tournaments, and in every battle I really hardest him, so it's gonna be definitely a tough one. About Davidev and Toto. Toto, I believe he's a very good player. I never had a chance to play against him, but I can't be honestly prepared for anything. I don't know what's gonna happen tonight. Let's see what's gonna happen. And about Davidev, I know he's like one of the most skillful players in ESL 9. Never really stood a chance to play against him as well, so it's gonna be interesting to see if I'm gonna play against him tonight. My favorite map is going to be Osaka, because it's probably the map that I have most practice on. This kind of map where it's not really about luck but more about technical skill, and that's something where I see myself as a main ability for me, hence why I'm gonna pick this map. I would probably add London, because London was the first ever map added to Asphalt 8, and I really love the design, and if they would make us they would add London to Asphalt 9, I think the design would be look astonishing. I would probably mention Future Flash, because he's the person who actually like helped me extend the knowledge of the game, and he's generally a nice guy to talk with. And I would also mention Onyo, because I didn't speak to him much, if I'm being real, but he's also seemed to be very genuine and he's very skillful despite being semi-retired player. He still keeps his high level performance. That's what I like admire from him. I just wanted to say good luck to everyone, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the tournament. I would probably leave alone, if I'm being honest. I don't feel like I would like to like be left there if anyone. I would like to try myself on my own.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Snapdragon Pro Series, where we are covering the Asphalt 9 Legends Open Final. For those of you who are just joining in, the Snapdragon Pro Series, it's basically the world's largest multi-genre mobile esports competition. It is huge. $2 million of prize money is being dished out across multiple titles throughout the year. Huge thank you to Snapdragon, and a huge thank you to Snapdragon Elite Gaming for putting this tournament on. It's been an absolutely fantastic day so far in Asphalt 9 Legends. iOS is now done. RPM Cool, without dropping a track, wins the grand finals. Not a result we saw coming at the start of the day, and I'm really hoping for a similarly exciting result here on Android. I'm John. With me is Harry. Harry, I can't wait for this to get started. I just can't.
I certainly can't indeed. It's just, we had upsets after upset, we had crashes, we had crazy plays as well. And this is only the first half of the competition. Like you said, we're now going on to the Android side, where hopefully Toto maybe do the same thing as what Cool did. Again, very little information, but we know he's part of the RPM family, looking to make an impact into the tournament setting, especially in the competitive scene here. A lot of stories here, and for these brackets, it's definitely going to be an interesting one here.
It certainly is. We have David going up against Onio, and then Toto going up against Jägermeister. You're going to have best of 3 semi-finals. There will then be a third place match, which is also a best of 3. And we'll be moving into a finals, which is best of 5. But it's not just, of course, competing for the win. There's a hefty chunk of change as far as prize money is concerned on the line for today's open final. Let's go ahead and show you what that is. We've already distributed the prize money for iOS, $2,500 worth. And of course, RPM Cool took home $1,200 of that. Same thing again. We move out on Android with $1,200 on the line for whoever can win the grand final.
Yeah, again, not too shabby in terms of the prize money. I'm sure anything at this point here, they'll all be going for that $1,200. But it's not just about the prize money here, John. Of course, it's all about the pride of being the best on your platform and in your region. And there's a lot of pride at stake here. We're going to see if Jägermeister, of course, can be back-to-back champion compared to when he won that full 2021 competition last season. Or we can see if Onio, you know, maybe the player who came second twice, both seasons in 2021, he had a miraculous year, or incredible year, so to speak. We'll have to see if he can maybe do one better here.
We certainly will. Onio, of course, a similar story to Alex, just consistently good. And up to second place. We want to see if he might be able to bump that one up. Very interesting storylines. Let's go ahead now and take a look at our first head-to-head. We're going to be playing David versus Onio. And as you can see there in the second qualifier, Onio having a little bit of an edge, about 1/10 of a second. But honestly, there's not much in it between these guys.
No, it certainly isn't. 1.06 in terms of the time in their qualifier on Pudio Rise. Only problem is, so can they reflect what they've done in this qualifier onto the main stage here in this 1v1 format? We know that for David, I've only seen him in one tournament setting where he placed 4th, and it was actually a very strong competition. But for Onyo, though, he's not looking for 4th. He's not looking for anything second. He's looking for an upgrade here, John. He's looking for that first place finish, and knows that getting through David is not going to be an early task in itself, or an easy task in itself anyway, shape or form. But for Onyo, though, I'm hoping that for his sake, he can try and make it for this grand final, or maybe David could cause a bit of an upset. We'll see.
I love these photos as well because it once again is a battle of the hair product. I feel like everyone is just as good as each other. But
I need some strats from him. I don't know like what I do with mine. But
we've got the like beard shampoo and beard cream going on for Onyo as well. So I feel like we'll be making a shopping list, and then in my case, waiting 6 years to actually be able to get something even half that impressive. It's going to be a really, really good one here. We can see some of the highlights from them in the qualifiers. And again, they're consistently quick drivers. Maybe not quite as consistent as, Future Flash has been top 3 in every single one or anything like that. But they're coming close to that sort of level. And as far as how close the competition is at the top of the leaderboard for Android, it's pretty much just as fierce as iOS.
Yeah, certainly is. I was actually just having a quick peek to see exactly the whereabouts and what they've been up to so far in each qualifier. But with Toto, though, he's placed top 3 in a couple of his qualifiers. But Onyo, though, has also placed top 3 2 or 3 times here. So it's been a bit of a mixed bag in terms of results. We haven't seen Alex, or it's not like Alex or Flash where they came top 3 in every single qualifier known to man. But we've seen a few glimpses here and there in terms of their positions.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the tracks that they are going to be competing in. This is the first semi-final, remember? So we're going to be starting off in Auckland. So we're on starting grid, and then we move on to Ancient Ruins in Scotland, which we've already seen once before today. And then, if necessary, we move on to Dambuster in Nevada for track number 3.
As if we're going to see Ancient Ruins again. That's going to be an interesting one in itself. But for starting grid in Dambuster, I spoke about it a little bit before. There's not really too many risks you can take, but there's a lot of tight bends, tight angles, and one of the ways you can maybe try and creep up if you're behind your opponent is, of course, drift a little bit more around some of his corners to gain a bit more nitro. Again, that nitro management playing a huge factor, or trying to at least barrel roll off some of his straight jumps. But these are some risks rather you can definitely take on starting grid, or maybe on Dambuster as well. But Ancient Ruins, I'm very interested to see who will be starting on the right-hand side. Maybe to keep a little bit of a straight line in order to overtake early on. But also, of course, those bridges. We've seen a few hiccups along the way on the iOS side. Let's see if the Android players can maybe say, look, we can wall ride. We can make these jumps with ease. We can do it perfectly fine. But again, the pressure will be on. David, we haven't seen him in this kind of environment for a while. But Onyo, we have been. So I'm sure in terms of pressure and how he's going to perform, he's going to be pretty damn comfortable.
Hiccups. I like how you describe that. I would have gone all out carnage in the first part of the day. It's been a lot of fun. We've had players that we don't expect to make mistakes making mistakes, and it's the pressure of competition at this level where there's prize money on the line as well. Nerves do play a factor. You can be the fastest time trialist in the world in dual format. That might not be worth very much if you crumble under pressure. So we might see a different driver, or a different characteristic out of a driver who has qualified really, really well in the past when we get down to the duel. That's what the competition's all about.
Yeah, that's what I like about some of these players as well. I kind of feel like a lot of the Android players can be, they've got a lot more character in the way they drive and a lot of strategies they use. And this is where Ancient Ruins, again, is going to play another piece of the puzzle here. What they're going to do at the start, depending on what side they start as well. There's a few little things here and there. But again, you know, don't get me wrong, the iOS was stacked in terms of competition, but this is also fairly stacked as well. Like seeing David coming back into the tournament setting once again, seeing Onyo going to try and perform once more, Jägermeister to maybe become back-to-back victors. Toto could maybe put a dent and just throw all of that out a window and maybe create a Cinderella story, very similar to what Cool did, and add another RPM name to that first place finish, or at least a podium finish nonetheless. But between these two, Onyo is looking to try and at least get into the grand final at the bare minimum, but he cannot underestimate David at all in the slightest.
Look, I mean, the fact that the Cinderella story is possible, the fact that RPM Cool won the competition on the iOS side goes to show, going into today, that anything actually is possible. And it's making me wary of predicting a winner out of these four now, because on the other side of the bracket, I feel like the player we were talking about least going for the win ended up winning it all.
Yeah, I think out of 4 predictions, we did 1 out of 4. So we would be the worst analysts possibly, I would probably say, in terms of the Asphalt scene. But then again, it's not just us. Who else would have predicted that? That's absolute madness in itself.
Yeah, it was really, really fun to watch. And as a result, of course, it means we could theoretically see something similar on the Android side of things as well. We'll just have to wait to see how it plays out. Let's talk predictions for our first match here on Android. Best of 3. How are we feeling?
I'm kind of feeling like Onyo will win this a 2-1. It's like I said, the 80 Ruins is a bit of a doozy, but at the same time, I kind of feel like it's more for Onyo to lose rather than the other side for David. I've not seen David race in a while or quite a long time. I don't know how much he's prepared or practiced compared to, you know, all those, well, not all those years ago, but just about 2 years ago compared to how he is now. But he is in an online setting once again, so he's kind of going to be in his comfort zone nonetheless in terms of experience. But the question is, how does he feel coming up against the likes of Onyo, where he's a very strong contender, definitely one of the favourites to be in that first place position to try and take down Jägermeister, or maybe even Toto. We have to see what happens later on. But for David, though, he just needs to keep calm, cool and collected, try and get that early lead, try and do whatever he can. He's the one who can afford to take some of his risks, because there's going to be a lot more pressure on Onyo to perform, and a lot of eyes are going to be on him during this stream, 100%.
Well, Onyo is no stranger, of course, to soaking up that pressure. And earlier on, we managed to catch up with him to get his thoughts on all things Asphalt and this tournament as well. Let's go ahead and listen to what he had to say.
I am Florian Roschu, RPM Onyo. I play Asphalt 9 for over 2 years now, and no, 3 years actually. And yeah, today is a great day. The tournament finally, and I'm looking forward to it. The origin of my in-game name is actually, that has quite some history, that I played World of Warcraft like 15 years ago, and was naming myself a little bit different, but then I switched over to my past game Trackmania, where I was not able to take my whole name, so I had to cut it, so it get from Onion to Onyo, and so I just stick with it. I would describe my performance not that good for now, because there were 4 qualification cups, and in the first 3 I was really not that good. I was able to peak my performance in the 4th one, which I'm glad about, but yeah, it could definitely go a lot better for me. So I hope that the final goes better and I can continue where I left in Tournament 4. I do have one expectation. I think that Jägermeister will win this, just to state the facts in the front. The thing is that it's always a little bit hard for me, because the qualifications is always setting the best time, which I'm okay and good at, I would say. But when it comes to the finals, it always goes to this round per round multiplayer version of the game, and that's where I lack a little bit strength in. So I would expect that I can maybe make it to the final. I'm confident and I'm excited about it. Like, I played every final now in Asphalt eSport games on Android, but still I'm excited about it. But yeah, I will be happy if I can go to the final and then give Jägermeister or Toto a good fight. Yeah, how I feel about my competitors. Yeah, as I already said, the Jägermeister I think will be the big favorite about winning this tournament. I did not play against RPM Toto that much. He's a teammate, but still there are many players in RPM, and we do not have some club scrims that often, and I'm not playing that regular in the last days because I'm working full-time now. But I played against Davidev, against my semi-final opponent already, and it was always close fights, so we are on par when it comes to multiplayer performance. So I think it will be a hard fight again, but as I already mentioned, due to my lacking of game time, due to full-time employment, I'm a little bit worried, but we will see. We'll see how this works out. Oh, everything can happen. Yeah, it's hard. Something that my supporters do not know. As some of them know it, but it is something that maybe explains why I got this good in Asphalt 2019, because I was playing this game 2 months and was able to compete in tournament situations already, because I was playing like 10 or 11 years of professional Trackmania game before. So Trackmania is an arcade game as well. And Yeah, that's just because I'm used to this behavior of cars and getting this tactics pretty quick that I was able to compete that fast. I'm sorry. Yeah, and that's something that I still read in some chats that people wonder about. Is this Onyo here and is he playing some other game? Yeah, that's true. Favorite game map in the game? I would say Caribbean. I so curvy. Like there are many maps in the game that were really full speed orientated. There are many straights, and where it comes to execution of nitro, brake tricks, etc. But when it comes to drifting and cornering, I really enjoy that, and that's why I would say the Caribbean is really good. Now there is a new map, or a new map for me because I'm not playing that much, that came out a few months ago or 1 year ago, Auckland, I think. And this is also quite good, but I would choose Caribbean if I have to decide. I saw that in the previous game from Gameloft, from Asphalt 8, there was one space map, and if you ask me what map I want in the game, that I would say they have to convert it or make a new version of this space version, because I think Asphalt has a great potential. I like that they keep it some realistic tracks, but I also would be intrigued to try this kind of track. Again, Jägermeister, I enjoy preparing for tournaments together with him. Like me, Suchti and Jägermeister are always preparing together. Or not always, but most of the time. So I enjoy conversations with him and just prepare. It's a good thing. Yeah, of course. If you ask me what I want to phrase for or what I want to tell them, yeah, of course I will win this. Yeah, I mean, I said that it will be hard, but I will push through. It's a tournament, guys. So easy. Yeah, of course. For anybody who's rooting for me, thank you for that. And I really enjoy playing the game. And if everything I read in Discord, etc., I read some text about someone missing my streams earlier in the days, and I really thought, okay, I did not really get that feedback earlier in the days, but now when I read something like this, then I'm really sad that I stopped streaming, etc. And but I read this from time to time, and you are heard, and maybe there will be something happen in the future. Which opponent would I choose to go with? Yeah, when it comes to sympathy, I would take Jägermeister because I had the most conversations with him. But I would be intrigued because I don't know RPM Toto yet, and I have no idea. And since I like surprises, I would take him with me. Even if I said that I have the best conversations with Jägermeister, but I like surprises, so probably Toto.
Well, you heard it all here, folks. It's going to be hard until it's easy, apparently. So that's what Onyo had to say about his chances here. He reckons it's going to be a bit more difficult than usual. He's obviously spent a little bit more time away from the platform, away from the game, but still very much within his reach to win it overall. Would you echo those sentiments, Harry? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And he also talked about Suchti. I always struggle with that name, I don't know why, but we've seen him in the past, and he did actually try an attempt in one of the qualifiers. I think it was one of the last ones, but sadly he placed third, so he actually did miss out on that one. And looks like even with David now going to see exactly what he's going to be up to here. And right. I believe this is going to be the first race, and already going into the first track here.
Indeed we are. So it's Onyo on the right, David on the left. Let's go ahead and take a look at which one of them will come out victorious. Onyo giving him a little bit of a nudge there. David into the wall, using the nitro there to keep up, and now nudging Onyo back out onto the outside. It's advantage David.
Certainly is indeed. It just got a slight edge on him at the moment, but it looks like Onyo's going to be using that perfect nitro a little bit sooner, but David messed up on that jump earlier on. And even though he managed to stabilize, it looks like Onyo isn't able to close the gap enough. Whilst I was actually expecting to even overtake here, but good drifting from Onyo so far. Using that shock nitro, managed to get past him here, John. Looking very solid.
Yeah, a little bit of extra nitro there from Onyo allows him to complete the overtake. This is significantly closer than we thought earlier on. And now David there. Oh no, clipping the inside wall, losing a little bit of speed that he had didn't have to. I feel like he might have even had an opportunity to close right up onto the back, and now he's got a bit more work to do.
David has made a few mistakes here. Jump earlier on, the clips here and there, and also didn't barrel roll off the previous jump. So he's going to lose a lot of time, and he needs to hope for, at least at some stage, Onyo to mess up on this second lap. But we haven't really seen many mistakes from Onyo here. Yes, you had a bit of a slow start, but even then, though, David here closing the gap. Great use of the perfect nitro. Onyo now using the double nitro and the 360 to gain a little bit more here off that last jump. David's still on his tail. Both players using this perfect nitro. David's still very close behind him here. Drifts a little bit longer. Uses the double whilst at least here Onyo uses a shockwave over that last jump to try and increase the lead a little bit more. But still, David is right on his tail.
Yeah, that early mistake might end up costing David more than he would like here. He's doing everything in his power to catch up, and he's so close to the back of Onyo. He can sniff him almost, but it's not quite enough to overtake it. Or is it?
That was so tight indeed. Lucky for Onyo, who's directly behind him, but clipped up just on the side of the wall, but does not matter. David is still closing the gap, getting a little bit more mileage. Has a little bit more nitro to use as well. Double nitro and then using a single to go around this next corner. Shockwave coming out from Onyo. Perfect timing. Same as David. David now trying to drift a little bit earlier, but it's actually clipped the wall again, but now can use the shockwave in order to at least close the gap a little bit more. But Onyo here, go around to this next bend, looking pretty damn solid here, as both players made a few mistakes here and there, John, but it's going to be Onyo who takes the victory on that first track.
Onyo surviving a scare there to take victory by under a second on track number 1. We have a match on our hands. David closing right up, hitting the back of Onyo at one point. We know he has the pace to close up, and we know he has the pace to overtake, but those tiny errors were costing him. If he eliminates those, we're going to go to a track 3 for sure.
Yeah, I kind of feel like David may have been the better driver, but the problem, if you're clipping the wall that many times, not barrel rolling, especially off one of those jumps, which was a little bit something we don't normally see here, as David is probably thinking the same thing. Imagine if he got that much nitro off that jump. Imagine if he didn't clip the wall so much that he didn't have to force himself to use that shockwave a little bit earlier. Like, you know, these little things did add up, but it's something which I would expect it to add up to like a second half to 2 seconds. That was only a second behind. So David needs to tell himself that he can still be the better racer. He did have the better lines in that first lap, but the problem is Onyo was just more consistent.
And look, at one point, that gap was down to a 10th or 2 tenths, and we even hit him at one point. So it was very, very much a case of Onyo holding on as opposed to powering away there. David chased him every single step of the way. But with a 2:33.565, it's going to be RPM's Onyo taking track number 1. 1 track away now from getting into the grand final, and we'll then move next into Ancient Ruins. So this could get a little bit spicy.
Certainly will do indeed, as we talk about this track quite a lot. Probably one of our personal favorites in terms of the entertainment value or the style points at the very beginning. But in terms of prediction, I think we expected Onyo to win this first track, not in the way or the fashion that we witnessed just then. I kind of feel like if it was a different story, if it were like the opposite end of the spectrum and we saw David not clip those walls, not make these little mistakes which started tallying up like a shopping list and missing that one jump for the barrel, it could have been a completely different story entirely. It should have been David really who won that outright, but Onyo still looking very good, even though a little bit more consistent. He made a few mistakes himself, don't get me wrong, but the lines did look better from David, and this is now time for Onyo to try and correct this, but it's all about this start strategy here, John. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's find out and hop into the game. We are now starting track number 2. Let's see who gets the upper hand.
We will do indeed, as Onyo is going to have the early lead here, but David is right on his tail. Both these players looking to go on the left-hand side of this track, using that double nitro and still on his tail here. Both players using that shockwave, but David gets a lot more from that last barrel roll. Should be able to overtake considering amount of nitro he gained in comparison, and look how far ahead he is at the moment, just about half a second. Onyo losing that double nitro, going to barrel roll up this next jump, going to go over the bridge, use the shockwave, but now he's going to try and wall ride over this next part of the track, but He messed up here, John. He's not going to wall ride as much. He's not going to have nowhere near enough nitro in order to close a gap here. This is not something Onyo wanted in order to start things off in this second race.
Very, very close there, trying to come back and have a little bit of a risk, making a bit of a mistake. Is Onyo had an opportunity to close the gap. Instead, maybe lucky that he's still in this at all. As it stands now, David leading Onyo in track number 2. Onyo behind by about a second, I want to say at the moment, maybe slightly less, so still all to play for.
Certainly is indeed. David could probably still play this race quite safely, depending on the circumstances. Just on this section here, needs to play it safe. That's all he needs to do. This tight bridge is David's something I've seen a lot of players get calling off in a 1v1 situation, but he hasn't really got too much pressure here. Of course, one crash is going to cost it all, but it's this next bit here, not just this bit. Make sure to try and at least wall ride, but Onyo messed up already, and that's going to give David's actually messed up. He actually messed up the wall ride there, so he's going to be pulling back a little bit shortly, and he's actually behind Onyo after all this. What is happening here, John?
Hang on a second. Both players make a mistake and Onyo's in front of the... Wow, the momentum there, the momentum swing is absolutely huge. I thought, okay, one wreck each, let's reset. But no, the positions are reversed.
Yeah, because of the crashes Onyo had, it wasn't really as bad because of the fact that even though with Onyo, he did crash ever so slightly, as you can see there, David now just go across the finish line, and it does mean that Onyo will win this race outright, the best of 3, 2-0. The problem is, for Onyo, the crash wasn't as bad. For David, he was on his side for a long time, for a good few seconds, which gave Onyo plenty of room. And that's not the only time we've seen someone fail to wall ride that one bend.
Down to a trading of mistakes there. Both drivers making a single mistake, but ultimately David's mistake cost him way more time. And that means, of course, that Onyo 2-0 his way into the grand final.
I thought I was going to go to a third track no matter what.
I think the
first thing is, he was playing it safe. He did play it safe, no matter what. But I think, again, he was just a little bit too early when he was wall riding and then just messed up. I don't think he even expected it. And that's the third time we've seen it today, which is... When we talk about people failing or making a bit of a hiccup or making a major error at some stage, you expect it to be off one of these jumps or at least at some stage around one of these bridges.
Yeah,
but the fact that a lot of these players have been failing to just simply wall ride one of these bends or just avoid wall riding it, just so, okay, yeah, sure, fair enough, it's going to cost you a little bit of time in terms of the nitro management you have and the amount of nitro you'll collect. Is it worth it though? You know, that's going to be the next question here. Maybe he thought he was going to be a lot closer behind him than he expected, but Onyo, his saving grace here, John, comes out with the victory, 2-0, 157.9, not too shabby.
Yeah, he does indeed, and that means he's booked himself a ticket into the grand final. So even though he said it's going to be difficult, he's still sticking true to his word, saying, I'm going to go ahead and win it anyway. RPM's Onyo through to the grand final. Very, very well done to him. We are still, of course, continuing to see the third place playoff, so no players are out or anything like that. We will get to see them race again.
Yeah, we certainly will. I'm still gobsmacked by that. And at the same time, I feel sorry for David, but his crash was just twice as long in comparison to Onyo. If it was a little bit different, then if it was just a standard crash where you can respawn straight off the bat, then it would have been probably neck and neck, actually, considering how much Onyo was closing the gap. But just absolutely absurd, just unreal, really. There's so many words to describe that one segment, but this was what we wanted here. We wanted a little bit of star points. We knew that Ancient Ruins normally brings it to us, and it has done once again.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket and how that has altered things. RPM Onyo is now into the grand finals, which means next up, we've got Toto versus Jägermeister. The winner goes to face Onyo in the grand finals, and the loser will go into the third place match to face up against David. So, exciting times here. Jägermeister name dropped a lot by Onyo, I have to say, in his VT there. Are we thinking it's Onyo's teammate is maybe not going to prevail here?
Yeah, this is a big discussion. We could have a thought-provoking discussion about this for a long time, because it's like you said, Onyo and Suchdi and his Jägermeister have obviously been practicing a lot to prepare for this. And look at the qualifier time between this one. We know that it's just a qualifier. We know that Rollercoaster Ride, of course, exactly isn't even going to be in this track pool. But yeah, it is a big gap, 0.8 almost. And For Toto, we've not seen much from him. This could be his first time in this kind of environment. We're going to see if he's, you know, in terms of pedigree skill, what he can bring to the table. But Jägermaster, this guy, this lad here, he's a big lad as well. He wants to try and go for back-to-back victories here, especially coming back from last season victor in the fall of 2021. And he wants another gold medal across his neck in order to try and at least make it to the grand final again. But of course, Onyo's going to be waiting for him. They both know each other very, very well. Strategies could definitely change up if he makes it that far. But let's see what Toto can actually do here, because I'm very interested to see what he can bring to the table, and if he maybe do something similar to RPM Cool. We'll have to find out.
Maybe, actually. Wouldn't that be amazing? We had RPM Cool on iOS. We could end up seeing a very similar story over here on Android as well. Let's go ahead and show you guys the tracks that these drivers are going to be racing on today. So we've got Auckland, but it's straights and hairpins this time around. And then we're going to be moving into the Path of the Wind in Scotland before going into Desert Life on Nevada if we require a track 3.
Of course, like we mentioned before, Path of the Wind not as bad as Ancient Ruins in comparison to what we do at the very beginning, but of course there's going to be a lot of talking points in terms of how they're going to progress against some of these ramps on some of these bridges, and straight and hairpins as well. Again, very similar to what we saw previously. It depends on who can get off to a good start, but the drifting is going to be what matters in terms of how they're going to use their nitro management for some of these jumps. And for Desert Life, you know, it's something I would rather see as the first track, in all honesty, just due to the fact that how open space it is and then what you can really bring. Normally the better racer on top, or naturally the better racer there with the better lines, of course, will be normally the victor here, unless someone drifts into each other and causes a bit of a scene at the beginning. We'll have to see, but we've seen Alex do that earlier on. That's how desperate he was to try and at least get the one track at least away from Cool in the iOS final. But yeah, this was going to be an interesting matchup. I've never seen Toto play in a tournament setting, and if he can really bring it, I'm going to be looking forward to it. But he's going to have to beat last season champion in order to just make it to the final.
So what's the prediction then, Harry? Is it a 2-0 Jägermeister from you?
Yeah, I'm going to have to say Jägermaster 2-0. I'll be surprised if it's not in any other way, but the problem is I've never seen Toto play. I've never seen him compete at this level, and I've never seen him compete in general. So he could be the best in the game on the Android platform, and we just don't know yet.
Well, let's go ahead and hop into game and find out. Look, today we've had single mistakes disrupting all of the best players, so let's go ahead and see if it'll happen here as well. I'd love to see a track 3 between these two, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is track 1.
Jägermaster with the early leads here. Toto using that double nitro to get a little bit of speed going up to this next jump. I think we've got a little bit more barrel roll coming up from that nitro, using the perfect nitro now to get around this corner. Drifted a little bit too far to the outside to my liking here, which is going to give Jägermaster a little bit of an edge here and increase his lead, as it does clip that last wall to get a little bit more of a boost here for that nitro. Drifting again around this next corner. Going to use that double nitro to see if he can at least close the gap once more. Gonna at least, the barrel roll's not the best, but you know, at least he managed to stand strong and not at least completely seismic toss over and crash, and now he's gonna at least shockwave in order to try and close it a little bit more. But the thing is though, it just looks like Jägermaster is closing the lead, playing it strong, very clean, wall riding now, and going up to this next jump to do this double nitro here to get around this next corner.
Yeah, Jägermeister here seems to be consistently faster here over the course of a lap. We're approaching the end of lap number 1 now, and the gap is increasing, I have to say. It's probably just over a second as things stand, and Toto really needs to dig deep, as well as maybe rely on a mistake from Jägermeister here if he wants to take the first track victory.
Jägermaster's not really making any mistakes at all, like just close to perfection here. Toto is playing a little bit better now, though. He seems to be a little bit more consistent on the fly. Maybe that first lap was to try and ease him into this environment, but now he's going to drift over to the next one, get that shockwave in, break a little bit early so he can at least shockwave again around this next corner to go into that gold nitro canister. Using a perfect nitro to get around this corner, but Jägermaster's going to shockwave now, just going around this next bend here to make sure he can barrel roll off this next one. Gets a little bit there, double nitro, perfect for him. Using a single to get around this next corner. He's going to shockwave straight afterwards, going to shockwave up that ramp. Good use of that nitro management once again, and is looking very clean indeed. Not taking too many risks, a little bit of a bump there, but he's going to be okay. He's going to wall ride now to at least get that shockwave once again. Toto's just trying to do everything he can, but some reason it isn't wall riding off that left side. Decides to go for the canisters instead, which is an interesting move in itself. But Toto, it looks like if Jägermaster doesn't crash, he's got a lot lot of time to try and accumulate. And I think for Jägermeister, it's just way too much for Toto. And Jägermeister going to be taking this here. John is going to be taking this first race. Nice little 360 for style points.
Very calm, very collected finish there. No major mistakes from either player. We saw some minor ones from Toto on lap number 1, but look at that, a nearly 5 seconds the gap there. Despite the fact that we didn't see the wrecks, we didn't see the major mistakes, that's a very impressive start from Jägermeister.
Yeah, 5.2 seconds without any crashes involved. That's basically a statement from Jägermeister already. It's very clean, good lines, good nitro management. And for Toto, even though he didn't clip too much, I don't think he understood the track to its full degree. I don't think he understands... Well, sorry, he understands it, don't get me wrong, but I think there's a few little missing tips here and there he needs to use in order to gain a bit more nitro. Like, there were some parts of the track he didn't wall ride, instead just prioritized the canister instead. He decided to, at the very beginning, prioritize the center of the track rather than the left hand side where he could have got a little bit of a lead. He played it very, very safe. I think that's what his problem was. But Jägermeister, again, treated it like a qualifier, had a fantastic time, 2:31.5. Not too shabby at all here. And Toto needs to play very risky. He needs to play out of his comfort zone. And it's like I said before, maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on Toto when I said in terms of track knowledge. Maybe he does know about these little things and just isn't using it because of it being a 1v1 format. He's just hoping that Jägermeister crashes at some stage. But he had that much of a lead here, John. Even if he crashed, he would have been perfectly fine with at least a 2 or 3 second lead.
Yeah, I think that really goes to show you can't rely on your opponent making a mistake. I know we've seen a lot of them today. I know it's possible, but you need to be on their tail so that when they do make that mistake, you can actually go in for it as well. We're going into now not Ancient Ruins, something a little bit less spicy. It's going to be the Path of the Wind. What do you think? What kind of risks can Toto take here to try and grab a track back?
But you know, it's not as spicy as Ancient Ruins here, John, but at least we're in Scotland. I think that's the the main talking point here. Risk he can take. Well, you know, it could break nitro on some areas. I think he may have to, again, heavily rely on what Jägermeister does in terms of mistakes, but it's very rare for him to do anything like that. He's going to feel very comfortable knowing that he won by 5.2 seconds without any crashes in the slightest, which is a huge, huge feat in itself. Maybe try and clip some of these ramps, or the straight ramps rather, to get the barrel roll instead of going for maybe a 360 or just going straight up it with a double nitro. There's a little things here and there, but the problem is, can he close something like a 5.2 second gap on a track like this? I'm not too certain here, but we're going to kick things off here, John, on the second track. Jägermeister now with the early lead. Both going up this second track, this first jump straight after. A nice little 360 there for Jägermeister now, using a shockwave, going up this first barrel roll.
We have Toto on the left, Jägermeister on the right. Getting an extra barrel roll there. And relatively straightforward there from Toto. But that does mean, of course, that Jägermeister has more nitro to play with and builds at that early lead.
So he does indeed. Toto is going to barrel off this next jump. Nice little double nitro there. And this is going to be very important. And actually, he's closed the gap quite a lot, using the perfect nitro to give himself a little bit of a boost, and so he can get a bit more nitro off that previous jump. Perfect nitro off the next one. Doesn't barrel roll, which is quite interesting. Decides to prioritize the straight jump in the middle rather than the sides. It's going to cost him at least a few tenths to half a second, and now he's training behind once again, and he knows that he can't afford to play safe against Jägermeister. Again, Jägermeister drifting, going to go use that shockwave, going to break again, use the perfect nitro to keep the speed consistent so he can 360 off this next jump. Nice use of that double nitro. Shockwave still manages to go up that next one with the 360. Decides not to barrel because of course it would have been way too risky, and looking so solid indeed. This could be another Jägermeister win, depending on how he plays it out to the last portion of the track.
This is looking very strong indeed for Jägermeister. Very limited time now for Toto to try and make a dent. And I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it, honestly. He's giving it everything he's got, but Jägermeister is just putting every wheel perfect at the moment. Risks being taken from Toto, but I think it might be a bit too little too late.
I think it certainly is. That one missed jump is going to cost him, but that certainly is trying to wall ride, but he's actually missed that one remaining jump. Toto realizes this is pretty much it. He's made too many mistakes along the way, and that's going to be Jägermeister pretty much taking this 2-0 in a best of 3. But I must say though, Toto made it a lot more competitive from what we saw previously. Some areas he played it a bit too safe, but you know, you're not in pole position. You're the one who's actually second. You need the one who has to be taking these risks and closing the gap here. So just a few margin of errors, which I'm sure he's going to review the VODs and try and work back on. But Jägermeister versus Onyo, another repeat final between the two here, John.
Yes, and some of our predictions are starting to come true on the Android side, at least. I thought all of our predictions were going to be rubbish today. No. We've got the final that we predicted on the Android half of the bracket. It's Onyo versus Jägermeister, and that's going to be quite a fun final. I have to say, though, between the two of them, Jägermeister's the one out of those two that I would say hasn't put a wheel wrong.
Agreed. Yeah, he seems to be a lot more consistent, doesn't he? I'm not too sure if it's because Onyo, like, if his opponent played a part in terms of some of the mistakes he made in the crashes, then I would kind of like just leave it. I would try and just say it's a bit of a blip, but it's not really a blip because of your problem. It's just due to the fact that your opponent caused you to make these unforced errors. But it was more himself, really. You know, they messed up on the wall ride. Actually, I think that was actually his opponent, David, at the time. But Jägermeister was definitely much more clean and efficient in comparison to his opponent. But he seems to be the most efficient in comparison to all the players we've seen so far on the Android side, and if he continues to play like this, then it looks like another trophy could be in his hands as a maybe potentially back-to-back champion.
It certainly does. But before we get to that, of course, we're going to be moving into the best of 3 third place decider before we actually go into the grand final. So this is what the bracket looks like at the moment. Onyo progressing with a 2-0. Jägermeister also progressing with a 2-0, which means that David and RPM Toto will be fighting to secure third place. Onyo and Jägermeister will be duking it out in a best of 5 to see which one of them will get $1,200. All to play for here. And David versus Toto. This is going to be an interesting one. What do we think?
I think from what we've seen so far, David looks like the better racer, but Toto seems to be more consistent in terms of actually keeping his wheels on the track rather than going elsewhere. But David, I feel like this should be a 2-0. David was impressed me a lot. I still feel like that should have gone to a third track, but the wall ride there, or the mess up of the wall ride, severely cost him. And not only that, but if it was a standard crash, we could be seeing maybe even David in the final. This is like, you know, another talking point. But he's going to be heavily demoralized knowing that he could have been the one in the final. I don't know if Toto can take advantage of that. We'll have to see. But I do feel like David should be the favorite coming into this. The only reason, or the only way that Toto could at least take third place is to stop playing so safe, take these risks, and be a little bit more cautious around your surroundings.
Well, you never know what can happen. Pressure affects drivers in completely different ways, so we'll find out shortly. Here are the tracks that they're going to be racing on. It's a best of 3, remember. We're going to be starting off on Paradise Resort, so we're going back to the Caribbean. And then we have the Kita Run in Osaka. If we require a third track, it's going to go to Canada.
Yeah, we did see the third track come out on the third place playoff in the iOS side, but real question is, will we get that far? That's going to be the question. It's going to be answered shortly. I'm not really too sure myself, but Paradise Resort, we've seen a few hiccups here and there from the opponents been previously between Flash and Stanix. But Kita Run, it's very tough to call how this is going to pan out. A lot of drifting is going to be a cause of concern for both these players. It depends how much they drift and how much nitro boost they can use in order to get around a lot of these corners on Osaka. But for Kita Run, though, this is going to be where it's going to be a key moment here. But for Canyon Launch, normally it's the player who's the better racer, so that's why I kind of feel like David should take this 2-0, but I'd be surprised if he takes it to a third track. But saying that now, Toto's probably going to win the third place, so yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. It is all to play for. We are getting ready now to go into the third place decider. I agree with you. It looks like that from what we've seen so far, David should be able to take this 2-0, but at the same time, we've seen all day one mistake hands the difference, so that it really does hand the match to your opponent if they don't make similar mistakes themselves. So we'll have to go and find out. Let's hop into game now for match number 1.
Yeah, remember, $200 for fourth place. Third will get double that. Let's see which player's hungry for that third place position. Place on the podium, so to speak here, but already a bit of a clash between the two. David is going to be one who comes out on top. Good use of the 360s as well. He's the one with the nitro advantage coming out from that last little scuffle there. Using a shockwave to go up this next. You know, the barrel wasn't the cleanest, but Toto has actually crashed already so early on. This is kind of like a flashback of what we saw when Future Flash did something similar here. Toto, though, used that double nitro to try and claw this back, but against David, it's going to be a cause for concern here. He needed David to cause the crash, not the other way round. And this is David's to lose here at this point, John.
Yeah, I think it is David's to lose. The question becomes whether David tries to play this safe or whether he plays it normally and risks a mistake, but potentially grows the advantage as a result. So very much in his hands as Toto tries to come back here. The gap now, though, it's considerable. It's several seconds and counting.
So here's good, the 360 to the drift there from Toto, but he messed up one of the jumps there. He did clip the wall, but he did get the nitro desperately required. Going to lap number 2 here is David. Again, you can see playing it very safe, just going over the bridge and collecting those canisters rather than going onto the right-hand side and go for that jump. Look, he's even avoiding the barrel roll jump just to make sure he secures. He knows, he probably watched the last race and witnessed and realised that he could be potentially the better racer here. But with jumps like this, perfectly understandable. He doesn't want to play it too safe. Toto will get a feeling that he's actually in for a chance to try and bring this back in the first track. But I like how David is playing safe and secure, making sure just to go into this second track with at least the 1-0 lead and knowing that he's got the opportunity to claim that third place position. Toto, though, on the other hand, taking a few risks, using that shockwave into the perfect nitro. He's going to see if he can collect up a little bit more going around this next bend here. And David, again, just missing, or sorry, not missing, rather, just avoiding these jumps at all costs. And looks like it's going to be no cause for concern here. Nice little 360. Just going to be backing on forward, reversing on in. Toto actually crashed himself and will be going over the finish line. So that'll be with David with the first place finish. 1-0 lead in this best of 3 by 7.1 seconds. So still increased it, even though he didn't go for some of those jumps.
Yeah, very nicely done there from David. Toto has got some serious catching up to do, but credit to Toto for doing what he needed to do. He had to take some risks to see if he might be able to inch himself ahead. The risks didn't pay off, but his game plan was the right one.
It certainly was. Like David, he could easily have gone for that right jump instead of going for the nitro canisters. There's a few other jumps which I kind of expect him just to go for anyway, like this one that is used for that shockwave. But he knows, you can see there's a little bit of a risk there. Sometimes the bounce on the jump down can be a little bit unfortunate for some players. You can crash onto the side and that's where it's going to cost him. And he didn't really want to have any part of that at all in the sliders. It's perfectly understandable. And when you... The one thing is he missed out on 3 jumps, and 2 of them not being the easiest, but one which he definitely could have took the risk on. It wasn't really too much in of a, he could have left that at all in the slightest, but still managed to increase the lead. I'm actually quite shocked at the time he still managed to get 2:02.6. And David now is probably thinking to himself, I just need to play my A game and just guarantee that third place position, $400 in hand. Wouldn't be bad for a day's work, but it looks like he's not been demoralized too much from the match he had against Onyo earlier on.
Yeah, it's certainly very, very strong stuff there from David, looking to 2-0 this. The question now has to be, what is Toto going to change? And I don't know. I think it's fair to say that David has the raw speed, that Toto's going to have to change something up. So going into Key to Run, what are his options? What can he do?
Key to Run, I kind of feel like David is going to have the better option in terms of what he wants to do to keep it consistent. It's not really many jumps would take too risky. It's more about the drifting around some of these tracks. There's a lot of tight corners, a lot of tight bends here, which Toto needs to take advantage of. But I kind of feel like that favours David in terms of his strats and his game plan to, well, at least for Toto, he needs to try and make a role reversal once more and get that early lead, try and use that double nitro at a certain point in time in order to then get that consistency up and take the victory. But I'm not really too sure. I kind of feel like David has got all the tools he needs in order to secure this victory in his skill set.
Okay, well, we'll find out in just a bit. We're going to have to recreate the lobby, unfortunately, guys, because one of the players didn't end up connecting. But we'll get that sorted for you ASAP. We move on back. I feel like it's tricky. I feel like Toto is relying on David playing into almost his play style to try and get him to take a couple more risks so that Toto could take advantage of it. And that sounds well and good, except for one thing. And that one thing is, if David just ignores all of it and plays this normal game, I'm not sure what Toto's going to do at that point.
Yeah, I don't feel like David needs to take too many risks. Like, it doesn't need to try and barrel roll off a straight jump. It doesn't need to be too cautious with some of the drifts he takes. It doesn't need to do it extra early in order to get a shockwave or anything like that. I kind of feel like he's well in his comfort zone. He's probably witnessed what he's seen already in the race previously. He's witnessed in the first race for even missing a lot of those jumps in the second lap, but he still somehow extended that lead, which was just ridiculous. He knows he's a better racer, straight up, and with the lines he's taken, everything he's done, it's fine. It's perfectly fine at the moment, but we say that now, but we'll see what happens going in the second track. But I kind of feel like, again, for David, it's for his to lose. It should be a 2-0, but Toto, if he's got anything to say about it, he needs to risk everything here. And this is a good time for it, you know. Okay, you're in a third place playoff. Okay, fair enough, you're, you know, not in the realms of possibility to try and make it into a final. But at least in a tournament environment, he can use his experience to gather what he needs to do and rely on what he can do from here and then take it forward into the next tournament.
Well, a quick word on if it does actually go to a third map. Canyon launch. Do you feel that that might benefit one player or the other more?
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's going to favour David again. Honestly,
no.
Yeah, this is the problem, you see. If it was a little bit different in that first track, then fair enough, because there was a couple of jumps which they're easy, but they're hard to master, because sometimes when you land, you can crash onto the side or at least clip the wall, which can cost a fair amount of time. But for the third track, it should be, again, David be able to seal the deal. One way or another, I feel like David should take this second or third track. If he doesn't, then I'll be surprised. Maybe Toto, all of a sudden, he might be thinking, oh, Kita Run's actually one of my best tracks, and so is Grand Canyon as well. Like, you know, it could be something we've seen entirely, because you've got to remember, he came out of the qualifiers through some very tough opponents indeed, trying to make it this far. And I was just trying to see exactly. He actually made it through previously. I'm not in one of the qualifiers, just trying to find it, but even though I can't find it anyway. But the fact that he made it this far, he's obviously got a couple of tracks which he relies on heavily in order to really make himself, like, you know, one of the great players to try and at least prove himself in a 1v1 situation. But if he failed some attempts or like got crashed by his opponent, or his opponent drifted early to kind of mess him up a little bit, then I would sing his praises and go, well, fair enough, you know, there's a few dirty tricks played in. But the problem is there's a few races or a few tracks he's played against a couple of his opponents, but it just seems to be a little bit, in terms of the skill set, a little bit out of age compared to the rest of them. The rest of them seems to be on a different tier, which I don't really want to say. There may be one or two tracks, like I said, for Toto, where he excels at, but the others he struggles. So hopefully these two tracks is one of the ones where he does excel at. If not, then again, it's going to be a cause of concern.
Yeah, you don't want to be reliant on just being like a track specialist for a specific subset, because at the end of the day, if you want to win a tournament, you're gonna have to get through a whole bunch of these tracks. So you don't just want to be good at a couple. That might get you into a semi-final, it might get you into a final, but it won't help you win it.
No, not at all. Don't get me wrong. There's a huge amount of tracks in order to try and master, and it's like you know, some are easy but hard to master. It's one of those situations, really. And the problem for him now is how he's going to try and go about this. Kita Run, I wouldn't say as risky in terms of jumps, but in terms of a lot of the tight spacing and the choke points and narrow corridors he's got to go through in order to drift in, he could excel at that. This is where you can really show your individual skill, your talent, your pedigree skill behind it, absolutely. But I kind of feel like David does excel in that department. This is the problem. Like, I don't know, I think what you said as well in that first track, where David did influence a lot of the start in strats which he laid on, and actually I think Toto kind of thought to himself, oh, okay, there's actually some bits I need to do in this race in order to keep up with him. So he's probably not used to what he's normally capable of in comparison to what David did. But I do feel like David, the better racer, the better lines, better nitro management, seems to be a little bit more talented on some of his tracks. But I'd love to see a lot more from Toto. I could be completely wrong, but from what we've seen so far, it's a small amount of ingredients we've witnessed from Toto, but we'll have to see what happens going into track 2. Maybe track 3, but we'll see.
Look, if you've got all the right ingredients to put together a fast time, but you can't quite string them together, even if you're inconsistent, you occasionally put a blinder together. And that's something that Toto could very well do right now and spring a surprise onto David. I agree with you, though. I think David is very much the heavy hitter in this matchup. Already 1-0 up, looking to try and make it 2-0. He's got to be the favored guy. What about if you're in the grand finals, taking a look back at this? Are you licking your lips going, okay, I roughly know what's going on. This is not as close to call, say, as the iOS.
Yeah, do you know, I'm actually quite excited, because I know Onio made quite a few slip-ups in his first semi-final against his opponent earlier on, but you know, that's just his first race. He's probably just eased into it, and we know what Onio's capable of. He's much better than we normally anticipate. But for Jägermaster, he was clean. He was so good. He was so quick on the mark. didn't have a care in the world. And when you face up against an opponent like that, that's when you start questioning your own ability and your confidence into can I take the whole thing. But these two are good friends. Jägermeister probably knows what Onyo can do, vice versa. He may see something a little bit different at the start, a lot of those tracks. And David, he probably still thinks he should be in that final after that little hiccup when he's wall riding in that second track on Ancient Ruins earlier on, which was, again, very unfortunate. But it's something I mentioned before. For David, he's going to get the best of a bad situation. He'll be happy with a top 3 finish. I will say this, though. David is playing much better from what I saw a year and a half ago.
All right, so let's go ahead and hop into the game. This is going to be track number 2. Is this going to decide who finishes in the 3rd place? We're off.
We certainly are indeed. David is going to be kicking things off early on as you can see Toto trying to get round him, but just struggling a tad here. But Shockwave comes out from David, going through this tunnel like it's nobody's business. Picking up that canister also. Still with a good lead. I don't think he's extended it too much here due to the fact that both of them are on a similar path here. But Toto sadly didn't drift enough to get the Shockwave, so that's going to extend the lead from the side of David a little bit sooner than anticipated here. Shockwave comes out again for Toto, but at least he's playing a little bit more consistently now. The barrel roll comes in, just a little bit of a, not the best of landings, but it's going to be enough to at least keep that nitro in check. He's going to be a perfect nitro in up. Good 360 from David, and now he's looking to try and get for his first lap comfortably.
And right now, currently struggling a little bit. Is Toto, but very much keeping up with David. If David makes a bit of an error here, then Toto will be able to overtake. So he's not that far ahead yet. We'll see if Toto can then close the gap and look for ways to sneak his way past.
Yeah, Toto's definitely playing a lot better and a lot more consistently compared to what we saw in all the tracks in this competition. Use that double nitro node to go through this tunnel using that canister. Both players will be, of course, drifting around this next bend. A tight bend indeed to Shockwave off. And the V just looking so good. But Toto's still on his tail, though. Of course, you can see there that for Toto now, it's going to be increasing that lead, or at least trying to close the gap. But David just looking way too strong at the moment. We did say previously, before this track even started, that it could be the better racer using that single nitro. Now the perfect to get around the corner. Double nitro is up. Good little fights there for the 360. And use that perfect nitro to get around this corner and up this next jump.
And looking silky smooth at the moment for David. And increasing his lead over Toto. He wants to stamp his authority on this and say thank you very much. And right now, he's doing just that. A really good performance there as David is en route to securing 3rd place.
Certainly is indeed, as Toto did everything he could. But the problem is he was still 4.1 seconds behind. That was, again, a sheet feat in itself. It's like I mentioned before, this was David's turf, both fish track on the next one. And if David didn't win this one, he was going to win the next one way or another. But commiserations to Toto, though. But at least congratulations to him for making it into the top 4. Doesn't go home empty-handed with the $200. But it will be David with 3rd place finish. Not too shabby at all with the $400 here, John.
Yeah, doing extremely well there. Well done to David, securing 3rd place in Android. And that, of course, means that we only have the grand final left to go. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket again so that you guys can see what's coming up and what has happened so far in this competition. You're watching the Snapdragon Pro Series. It's Asphalt 9, a legend. So, Onyo defeats David 2-0. Jägermeister then beat Toto 2-0, but David managing to get the 2-0 himself in the 3rd place match, which means he finishes in 3rd. This is now going to be a grand final best of 5 between Onyo and Jägermeister, the one that we predicted at the start of the day. And this is going to be really fun to watch.
It certainly is, yeah. Do you know what? Our predictions haven't been too shabby in the Android side there, John. I'm quite happy with that so far. David, though, like I said, commiserations to him, but I still felt like he played a lot better than what he did 18 months ago. Just a few mishaps here and there, which cost him in that previous matchup in the semi-final, and I look forward to seeing more from David, I'm sure, and the old Android side in another tournament in the future. But for Toto, though, this is going to be experience for him. He'll have to just try and iron out some of those kinks there, some of the mistakes he made, and try and improve some of the knowledge he had or some of the risks he needs to take. But, you know, you've got to start somewhere, don't you, John? This is the whole point on the Snapdragon Pro Series. It's more just grassroots, but also at the professional level here, you've got to try and learn somewhere one way or another. So I look forward to seeing Toto again in the future. But the grand final, though, yeah, I have absolutely no idea. Maybe Jägermeister with the advantage, given how clean and fast he was and how smoothly he managed to make ease of his competition. But then again, no, Onyo is going to try and at least rectify the mistakes he made in the previous semi-final. Different tracks, of course, going into it. I'm very excited to see exactly who comes out on top.
Well, you guys can have a little bit of a say in that as well. We've got a Twitch. Sure, you connect to that and let us know your thoughts in the Snapdragon match predictions. So you can put your vote in via Twitch chat now for who is going to win in this grand final coming up. And look, if you're going to start somewhere like Toto, start somewhere where you're already in the prize money. That's a pretty darn good place to start. So I've got no doubt that we're going to see more of Toto in the future.
No, not too shabby at all. A top 4 finish is something you can add to a CV once more. And like I said, it's a digital experience as well. And he probably realises that maybe he was a little bit out of his depth in terms of his performance and how smooth he could have played some of these tracks. But it's like I said, you've got to start somewhere. I don't feel like Tutu played awful. I think he played okay. Just a lot of risks and a lot of things he needs to take into consideration, especially against some of the top tier opponents on the higher echelon in the Asphalt scene. Like you've seen in the iOS, it was just ridiculous. But going into these tracks though, I said it before here, John, I'm still very excited to see what happens on Cave Heat and Internal City. We know that Alex had a little bit of a fumble on the last parts of the final lap on City by the Base. That's something definitely got to keep our eyes on. But we had a very close race on 1000 Minarats in the previous grand final on iOS. I'm hoping for the same here, John. Hoping for the same.
Yeah, I think we could see something similar here for sure. So we start off in Cairo, we then go to Cave Heat in the Himalayas, and then City by the Bay, San Francisco will be our third track. If necessary, we then go on to Eternal City in Rome, and then the Nanjing Stroll in Shanghai will round us off in this grand final. And we could conceivably go all the way to 5 tracks here. Let's have a chat about predictions. What do you think is going to be the score and in whose favor?
It's a question of is history going to repeat? So is it going to be 3 seasons in a row Onyo is going to come second? I kind of feel like it is from what we witnessed in that first semi-final. I'm hoping it was just a bit of a relapse and he can just forget about what happened in that semi-final and just move on to the grand final. A lot of players, especially in competition at this high level, normally get better as they play more in the tournament setting. I do feel like Onyo will be on the top of his game, but Jägermeister from the get-go looked like he's hitting peak performance. I'm sure a lot of the viewers here at home and a lot of people in chat are probably thinking the same thing. He looked really good, but not just really good, but he was solid on every turn bend he made. And it's for Onyo, you know, to see exactly if he can at least bag his first place finish after the 2 seconds he had in the 2 previous seasons back in 2021, or if Jägermeister would be back-to-back champion. We'll have to see.
We'll have to find out. I'm predicting Jägermeister 3-1. But let's go. It's Cairo and 1000 Minarets. Away we go off the line.
Onyo with that nice early lead, of course, starting that left-hand side. Didn't have to move too much. Get a straighter line over that next ramp. Both of them going to shockwave over. As both the players know each other very well indeed, so it's only natural both of them will meet each other in the grand final. But Jägermeister got a little bit more of a barrel roll there and a lot more airtime as well, which means that he's going to have a lot more nitro going forward and overtakes his opponent.
Onyo right behind, but the momentum at the moment with Jägermeister. Let's see what they can do here. Going for the double. Onyo managing to get more barrel roll off the first jump, but opting to skip the second entirely. So differing approaches, and he's closed right up, actually.
Jägermeister, I'm surprised because he's actually getting more airtime. He's getting more barrel rolls in favor compared to Onyo, but Jägermeister's still in the lead, which is going to be the main factor here. Onyo looking very consistent, much cleaner from what we expected in that first semi-final. Jägermeister got his shockwave a little bit sooner, just both of them just braking, using that shockwave in order to keep up with the mileage here, just making sure they can keep the speed as consistent as possible around that earlier bend, without having to use that single nitro for the handling here. But both players using that 360 to get across the next bridge, going to lap number 2. It's going to be all to play for here. Just a matter of Jägermeister being able to continue what he was doing with those barrel rolls up those jumps, and for Onyo to correct some of those barrel rolls he was using before, but it's actually just been wrecked. I just saw a glimpse of that on the left-hand side. in terms of the feed there. And now for Onyo, he's got a huge amount of work to claw back from. And the way Jägermeister has been playing previously going into the final, I can't see him making, or at least faltering in any way.
Yeah, Jägermeister there, very much a huge advantage now after Onyo gets wrecked. Sadly, a single mistake is going to decide the outcome of this first track, that's for sure. Oh, Jägermeister needing to reset as well. Hang on. Is this the end, or is it? This is going to be a very entertaining finish.
Yeah, I just saw that glimpse of that in the feed again. Now, maybe we
He's
just
still in the
jinxed him
lead.
here going into it so far. Exactly that. Good use of the shockwave going up to the next jump as well. Good nitro management once more going into this next bend here. I kind of feel like Jägermeister has a little bit of advantage going into this next bend from what we saw. Nice lines here coming up from Onyo, so saying that, considering the circumstances he was in, still directly behind him. Needs to get some good barrel rolls here in order to keep up with the nitro management compared to Jägermeister. Uses the perfect nitro here. He's going to play it extra safe in order to make sure to secure that first place finish over the finish line and manage to secure that first win on this first track here. Both of them actually crashed. Both of them actually made a bit of an unforced error there, but he's going to be ended up winning 1.8 seconds. Very good here from Jägermeister, and Onyo much cleaner from what we saw in that first semi-final.
Jägermeister there winning, but well, not without a little bit of a scary moment of his own. Nearly handed it straight back to Onyo. Fortunately, though, it was Onyo who made the mistake first, and that gave Jägermeister just enough breathing room to grab track number 1. Going into track 2 now, this is going to be really, really interesting.
Certainly is indeed, and it's going to be on the Himalayas as well with a cave feat. So this is what I'm very excited about as well. It can be very risky, and you can very easily make some unforced errors or a huge amount of mistakes, which could be very unfortunate. When I say about risks, in terms of at least trying to barrel roll off some of these straight jumps, there's 2 in particular I'm going to be keeping my eyes on especially. And the question is now, though, like, are they going to take these? I think they will, absolutely. They know each other very well. There's no reason why they won't, and they need to at this point in order to try and secure this. Jägermeister, though, they're probably the favourite in this competition to try and win a second straight victory here in the following season here. 227.365, looking very good considering that crash earlier on. Still winning by 1.2 seconds here. We'll have to see if it can keep this up.
1-0 up at the moment. Looking to find a way to make it 2. This is very, very entertaining indeed. Jägermeister and Onyo both making mistakes. And because this is, well, getting a little bit spicier, it's actually harder to call as well, right? It could be Jägermeister putting a wheel wrong first.
He certainly could, yeah, he certainly could. It's just about these 2 jumps in particular and hope they do it cleanly and efficiently. It's about the first one, of course, the straight jump going up to Nataly's barrel rolling off it, and then the big jump coming in halfway through the track. As normally, some players may not risk it, especially if they've got a decent lead, but we'll find out now going to the second track here. Definitely one of my favourites in terms of the entertainment value and what to expect here, especially between the likes of Onyo and Jägermeister. Jägermeister, actually both of them double nitro to get a little bit of a boost here, just clipping the wall a tad, just wall widening it a tad as well. Both of them are going to be favouring the barrel roll, and it looks like Jägermeister is definitely going to have the advantage, especially with the amount of nitro he has. Got a perfect nitro forward, but at least crashes Onyo there. Jägermeister is going to have an incredible lead, and this is where we're going to find out if he's going to continue to take these risks with the barrel rolls off these straight jumps, or if he's just going to crack on and play it safe.
It was neck and neck there until the wreck from Onyo. That was so unbelievably close. A game of inches, millimeters even. But Jägermeister there will be able to continue, and Onyo, unfortunately, wrecking early on. Let's find out if they can catch up and whether Jägermeister here might make a mistake of his own.
He could do, but he's not really playing it safe. He's just playing his A game in the moment, because he knows that he probably feels like he's a better racer considering how much he won by, even with the crash he had. And Onyo knows that, and Onyo's going to respect him as a player for that as well. So he knows he's got to continue to same, but in all fairness, he has absolutely no choice in the manner. Nice little jitter from Jägermeister to allow a little bit of speed going up to that next jump. Actually, he actually crashes in the end. We just barely missed that. Absolutely typical. But even in the end, though, does matter. Oh, that was beautiful there. Doing that nice little jump as well to extend the air time and to be able to at least increase his lead. That was fantastic stuff here from Jägermeister. Not something we've actually seen today.
No, not at all. And if you're going to recover from a wreck, that's the way to do it. Onyo has him kind of within his sights, but Jägermeister, in no small part, thanks to that beautiful move, is now far enough ahead that you're going to need a second wreck for Onio to win this.
Oh, it actually did wreck himself. That must have been with the barrel roll off that last jump. So Onio, not really too far off from the finish line in the next 30 seconds. Jägermeister's going to be kicking himself a little bit because he was actually had a decent lead. He didn't really have to risk it. But now Onio's going to be drifting on forward, using that double nitro to at least get a little bit more from that drift on the previous side. He's going to be playing it very safe. And look at this as well, just extending the tab with that drift to get that double nitro. Nice little 360 off the little bounce there. And it's going to be Onio taking that. And you can remember, Jägermeister actually made 3 failed jumps, and it's going to cost him, even after the spectacular jump he made off the cliff earlier on for halfway through. But it's actually the large jump halfway through the track where it's going to cost him. Unbelievable stuff there, just under 5 seconds.
What is going through Jägermeister's mind? I honestly thought before that final wreck that all he had to do was play it safe. Yeah. And he must have just decided, no, I'm going to play my normal game, which is fine. But then missing that jump and wrecking the car a second time handed that victory to Onio. So it's now 1 apiece in the grand final.
Yeah, Onio was gifted that second race, just considering the position he was in at the moment. But Jägermeister, he's a very flashy player. I loved what he's bringing to the... I love the risks he's taking. And Onio here must be thinking, do you know what? I just need, even if I'm behind, I just need to play it cleanly, because eventually Jägermeister's going to fumble at some stage.
I mean, I can't look at that. I mean, wow.
That was unfortunate.
That's a lot of barrel rolling going on there. Yeah, but the way he came back, though, the first wreck and then the second one from Jägermeister, what is going on? Like, that, where there are so many twists and turns in this tournament, I can't even begin to explain. That was ridiculous. Oh, we didn't get to see the second crash, but it's Onio who takes that home and brings it to 1-1.
I think how Jägermeister was able to shockwave off the cliff, off the track, and just stay on and extend the airtime and the 360. That was just incredible stuff. We've not seen any player do it in a tournament environment as of yet until that track just now. And for Onio, probably singing his praises, probably thinking, thank you for playing unsafe to the majority of lap number 2 and giving me the chance here. But I do feel like at some stage Jägermeister has been slightly better on some of the tracks in terms of the smooth sailing he's been doing with the lines he's been performing. Yeah. Of course, a lot of his bends here, but Onio now, he realizes that Jägermeister does make a lot of unforced errors, which he maybe could have controlled. I mean, we both would agree that, you know, if he was playing a little bit safer, that should have been Jägermeister's hands down.
Well, let's find out. It's tied up 1 apiece in the grand final. Let's go ahead and move on to the next track. Here we go.
And Onio now gets a nice little early lead there and tries to stop him from getting the canister also. He's going to have a nice little nitro lead as well. Perfect nitro across the next bend. Just keep his nitro going forward. It's going to drift into the shock wave. As Jägermeister's still got the perfect nitro and actually going to be trying to get a little bit better. Actually managed to try and overtake him here, but Onio's going to have a little bit more nitro. Actually saying that, a lot more nitro. Nice little shockwave here from him to overtake Jägermeister once again, but Jägermeister's actually taken a lead once more. Both of them on very similar nitro. Onio's got a slight edge, I'd probably say, but Jägermeister's probably worried that Onio could land on top of him. Use that shockwave a little bit earlier and actually got a little bit more in terms of his nitro management also. So both going to cross it, definitely neck and neck between the two, and it's going to be very difficult to call also here, John.
Onio catching up just a little bit onto Jägermeister, but Jäger very much in the lead. See what happens as they move towards lap number 2. You've got the advantage now starting to be squeezed out as Onio continues to try and catch. Jägermeister just having a little bit of an advantage in this section of the track.
Interesting. Onio decided to go for the 360 rather than the drift early on before they crossed the line, going into lap number 2 to try and help things out a little bit. Oh, okay, Onio with a bit flashy there to try and at least stabilize himself or trying to get a bit more nitro, but that could help him a tad using this shockwave. Still waiting for Jägermeister to falter, but he is closing the gap. He fell short a little bit, but now he's closing it a little bit more now by a few tenths of a second, doing everything he can in order to try and creep. Oh no, but he just barely misses the jump there. That should be all but it here for Onio. Jägermeister got a clear lead, not really anything which could cause an area for concern here for Jägermeister. Not really anything unsafe for Jägermeister to fail on in order to give Onio the lead back to him here. Just got a drift around here, use that double nitro, cross the finish line, And that is going to be it for him. Sadly for Onyo, just barely missed that jump. It's going to be question marks if he could have overtaken him earlier on. Not really too sure about that. But that is going to be Jägermeister winning by 9.1 seconds.
Wow.
And he's now going to be on tournament point.
Look, track number 2 there was decided by an error. Track number 3 arguably decided by an error as well. So 2-1 tournament points to Jägermeister. And we get to see the Eternal City now.
We certainly do, and we've not actually seen the Eternal City yet due to the fact that, cool, how dare he, winning at 3-0, not giving us even an opportunity to see tracks 4 and 5.
Right.
But you wonder, we do get to see it, and this is one of the other tracks I'm very excited to see, one of my personal favourites as well, and I want to like to witness exactly how these two are going to play it as close to perfection as possible. But yeah, seeing these both go neck and neck in lap number 1, it was really a cause of concern for Jägermeister, but even for Onyo though, it was just very unfortunate, unfortunate to barely miss the bridge. But then again, Jägermeister was so consistent and clean, I don't think he would have overtaken him. Yeah, sure, would have closed it by a few more tenths of the second, but both of them had very similar nitro. There wasn't really anything more risky he could have done in order to try and solidify a first place finish, so Jägermeister was going to take that anyway. And as you can see there, 158.765. So he will be on tournament point, wins his next track. He will be your Android champion for the second time running. But Onyo is going to be doing his absolute damnedest to put a stop to that.
Onyo has to dig deep now in order just to take the tournament to a track number 5. 2-1 down in the grand final. The good news is Onyo's been in this position before and has the experience to potentially overturn this. But the reverse sweep now, it's looking difficult with how well Jägermeister is driving. Let's head to the Eternal. Jägermeister will now stroke it home.
So could this be the track where Jägermeister will put the nail on the coffin and secure his second win back-to-back? Onyo, though, he's going to be saying something here. Got a nice little early lead, gets that early canister and the drift in order for that perfect nitro, but Jägermeister trying to overtake him, but he had a little bit more nitro and speed and good use of the line as well. It's actually thrown Onyo off a little bit. Didn't get the barrel roll as much as he would like, so of course he's going to have the nitro advantage, but Onyo was so slow going up that bridge, he couldn't even make it. Jägermeister, huge favourite now to try and take this tournament.
Yeah, that is massive. I think a big problem with the mistakes, honestly, is that in every single track, Onyo's been the first one to make that mistake. Like, Jägermeister has come back and made some of his own, but he's always done it from a position where he had the advantage. And now this is tournament point. Jägermeister wrecks, so he responds with a mistake of his own. How close is Onyo?
And this is why I was excited to see what is going to happen in Eternal City. This is exactly what I anticipated. And I'm going to see a lot more of it, hopefully, as well. Onyo is still behind, though, don't forget, by quite a large margin, but still got another lap to go here. Using that perfect nitro, balances it perfectly off that last jump. Using that good barrel roll usage as well. Onyo using that single nitro just to keep the mileage up, but at the same time, making sure to have good nitro management to use the perfect nitro off that next bend here. Doing everything he can to try and creep on up, using the double nitro here to go up this next bend to get as much as he physically can. But he is closing the gap ever so slightly, but the problem is Jägermeister's going to have to make a fatal unforced error in order to at least make a go of this, or at least give Onyo a chance to take this to a track number 5, but I just don't think this is going to happen at all. Onyo's playing out of his skull, but Jägermeister looking very solid, and look how safe he's playing it at the moment here. He knows he's got a huge lead, just need to play it calm, cool and collective. Decides not to go for the barrel roll, and this could be it here for Jägermeister.
Knowing that all he has to do is survive to the finish line, Jägermeister on tournament point, knows exactly what he needs to do, crosses the finish line, and that's a 3-1 victory in the grand finals for Android here at the Snapdragon Pro Series. Well done to Jägermeister, a very strong showing. Made a mistake as well, but recovered very well.
Yeah, luckily for him, the crash wasn't as prolonged compared to Onyo's was, and not only did he, deprive him from the speed, which he did from that little mishap earlier on where he didn't give him as much as a barrel roll and to gain as much nitro, but slowed him down enough to not even be able to cross the bridge. And Onyo probably felt like that's it, that's pretty much game over, because that crash in particular not only delayed him by a couple of seconds, it was a good 3 or 4 seconds. So that's when he realized that Jägermeister's gonna have to make a really bad error and crash at the same time. And for him to do that, you can see how safe Jägermeister was playing. That's probably the safest I've ever seen him play, but he will be your back-to-back champion. In all fairness, who wouldn't in that position?
I mean, he was like, hang on a second, look, $1,200 is on the line here. Let's maybe play just a little bit safe in the very, very final track, and who can blame him? Onyo, though, still going out with 700, a very, very strong result for him, to be sure, but it is Jägermeister that is your Android champion.
And what a way to win it as well. A few errors back in the Himalayas on Cave Heat, but he's definitely made up for it on the other 3 tracks. He will be your Android champion. The grand finals 3-1. The time though for that last track, if anyone's interested, is 2:08.165. Still quite efficient considering the crash he had,
right,
and the shenanigans he was pulling and the mischief he was up to against Onyo at that first part of the track, in the first part of that first lap here. But definitely gave him a massive edge, a massive lead there. Exactly what he required. And it's not every day you can say you're back-to-back champion, especially in the Asphalt scene here. So he should be very proud of himself with that $1,200 also. It's a nice little boosty bonus there.
Exactly right. $1,200 richer, and a very strong tournament for him indeed. Let's take a look at the bracket and recap some of the action you guys have seen today. So this is Android. We had Onyo defeat David, and we had Jägermeister defeat Toto. Jägermeister winning the grand finals 3-1, with David taking 3rd place.
It's definitely been a tournament in itself. Definitely a lot of storylines here, but commiserations to the other players though, but they did perform massively in terms of even making it this far into the top 4 through the qualifiers. But some storylines to point out, we have to say that David has definitely improved massively compared to 18 months ago. Toto managed to get some experience underneath his belt. And of course, Onyo, sadly, it's going to be his 3rd second place in a row. Jägermeister doing what he does best and showing how efficient he can be when the finals does matter indeed. But 3-1, not too shabby. Only dropping 1 track the entire tournament. He's going to be pretty damn pleased with himself.
Very pleased indeed. Jägermeister there, extremely strong stuff. So that's going to wrap things up for Android. We had iOS earlier as well, of course. A really, really exciting day of games, and a fun evening as well, with some unexpected twists and turns. Harry, before we sign off for the evening, talk us through the tournament for you and what you've thought of the evening.
It was just nothing short of spectacular once again. The iOS was just massively stacked. We've seen Jägermeister on the Android side winning it back-to-back, which is, like I said before, we never see it end of a day. Very happy to cast Asphalt once again. It's been a while. Been getting the withdrawals and the jitters really, John. I'm not going to lie to you, but I've also been getting even more withdrawals, not being able to cast with you, finally being able to. And it's been an absolute pleasure as always.
It's been fantastic stuff. And don't forget, you've been watching the Snapdragon Pro Series, the world's largest multi-game mobile esports competition. Massive thank you to Snapdragon Elite Gaming for allowing us to put this on and take just a share of that $2 million of prize money to give it away in Asphalt 9 Legends this evening. My name's John. You've seen Harry as well. Absolutely wonderful on the mic this evening. Thank you to everyone in production and all of the players for making this as good as it was. This was Asphalt 9 Legends. You've been watching the Snapdragon Pro Series, and we'll see you again next time.